I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. With that, next is our meeting minutes. Councilmember Shapiro.
Thank you, Mayor. I move approval of items A 1 through 5 and B 1 through 14.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Shapiro and seconded by Vice Mayor Robin Arredondo Savage. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. That motion does carry. Next is I have some announcements, and I'm going to come down to the dais or to the podium. Today, we are recognizing two very important departments. All the departments in the city of Tempe are important, but we're recognizing two that really don't always get the recognition that they deserve. But let me tell you, the integrity of our building safety team is as strong as the buildings that they get built, and our public works team. They help deliver the most crucial and daily services that the city provides, like getting water to you or fixing our roads and our infrastructure. So at this time, I'd like to call Michelle Lawrence and the rest of the building safety team down. I'd like to have a proclamation for them if they can come on down. There they are. And I have a proclamation for, look at this. This is the Building Safety Month. And I have a proclamation where it states the city of Tempe is consistently growing at the strength of our, and the strength of our growth depends on the safety and the economic value of our homes, our buildings, and our infrastructure that serve our citizens both in everyday life and in times of natural disasters. And whereas our confidence in the structural integrity of these buildings that can make up the community is achieved through the devotion of the vigilant guardians, building safety and fire prevention officials, architects, engineers, builders, tradespeople, design professionals, laborers, and others in the construction industry who work year-round to ensure the safe construction of our buildings. And these guardians are dedicated to the members of the International Code Council, a U.S.-based organization that brings together local, state, and federal officials that are experts in the built government or the built environment to create the highest quality of codes to protect us in the buildings where we live, learn, work, and worship and play. And whereas due to the international codes, our government can avoid the high cost and complexity of developing and maintaining these codes. These respected buildings codes include safeguards to protect the Republic from natural disasters such as hurricanes, snowstorms, tornadoes, wildland fires, floods, and earthquakes. And whereas building codes save lives, the theme of Building Safety Month 2018 encourages all Americans to raise awareness of the importance of building safe and resilient construction, fire prevention, disaster mitigation, new technologies in the construction industry, and acknowledges the critical role of our community, largely unknown guardians of public safety. And whereas each year, the Building Safety Month, the City of Tempe recognizes the hard work of the building safety team and thanks them for keeping our community safe. Now, therefore, I, Mark Mitchell, Mayor of Tempe, Arizona, do hereby declare as May 2018 as Building Safety Month. Thank you so much for keeping us safe. Next, if I can have Don Bessler and the Public Works team come on down. It's also known as the Public Works Week. And I do have a proclamation where it states the Public Works employees of the City of Tempe provide a wide variety of public services that are vital to our residents' lives every day. And whereas the City of Tempe employees build, operate, and maintain infrastructure, forming the very foundation of our community and the prosperity and the recognition of Public Works Week enhances public awareness and the essential services and the dedicated employees who serve the Tempe community. The support and the understanding of an informed community is so important to the life essential services and programs, including safe drinking water, wastewater services, regulatory compliance, solid waste services, refuse and recycling, hazardous waste, transportation, transit, parks, sports fields and golf courses, and engineering services. Public Works Fleets is ranked as number 8 in America. And whereas the health and safety of the Tempe community and its residents greatly depend on those services and the employees who provide them daily. The Public Works team in Tempe uses evidence-based programs to bring these services to families in the most strategic way possible. And whereas public work employees are among the first responders during emergencies and disasters, often working above and beyond the call of duty to maintain and restore the needed services, and then continue to work long hours in order to ensure the restoration occurs and operations continue. Now, I, Mark Mitchell, Mayor of Tempe, Arizona, do hereby declare May 20th through the 26th of 2018 as Public Works Week. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, next is the Tree City USA and the Growth Awards. Can Sean Thomason and Bonnie, can you just please stay up here? Oh, there she is, right there. The Arizona Department of Forestry and Fire Management operates the Tree City USA program, and for 22 years now, the city of Tempe has received this award for our dedication to the community forest and urban forest management. And for the 16th year, we are receiving the Growth Award for sustaining and expanding our urban forests. And I'd like to present the Growth Awards to Bonnie and to Sean. Thank you. Mr. Manager, you have any announcements?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. We do have a few announcements this evening. First, a presentation from staff on the the Bike It program.
Thank you. Mayor, members of council, my name is Chase Wallman. I'm a transportation planner, and today I'll be talking to you about Bike It bike boulevards, or Bike in Tempe. So Bike It really aligns with council's strategic priority on achieving a high quality of life in Tempe, specifically the performance measure on achieving a 20-minute city. So I know that you received a couple of Friday packets, as well as this being in the Tempe today, but I want to talk more specifically about how this contributes to the 20-minute city effort. So Bike It is a system of wayfinding signage of recognizable symbols meant to connect neighborhoods to major activity centers and destinations. It contributes to the 20-minute city efforts because it identifies these lower stress bike environments. These are bike facilities placed on off-street pathways and streets with low motorized traffic volumes and speeds. So this really contributes to bicyclists of all ages and abilities feeling more comfortable on our facilities. It's identified in the Transportation Master Plan and General Plans 2040 and is currently programmed into our CIP. So today I'll talk more about the Phase 1 installation, which was completed this past fall. Phase 1 was the installation of signage only along 4 existing bike boulevard routes. Those routes were the spoke, brake, pedal, and handlebars routes. So in total, 201 signs were placed along these 4 routes that directly connected 8 schools and 13 parks. On the bottom right, I just wanted to show sign size examples of what's out there. There's a smaller 12 by 12 inch sign, and then on the right, you see the larger 12 by 18 inch sign. So careful consideration was taken in order to reduce the number of new signposts necessary for the install. So you'll see that a majority of the signage that's installed today is actually on existing facilities, such as existing signposts and light poles. How the wayfinding signs work along the routes is that you have a larger 12 by 18 sign indicating the start of the route, And then at every arterial or every half mile, you would have a confirmation sign. From there, if there was ever a change in direction in the route, you would have a directional sign prior to the turn, and then a confirmation sign immediately following the turn. And then finally, you would end the route with a larger 12x18 sign that says end route. So going through these 4 routes that have been installed, first the spoke route, which is connecting Optimus Park to Kiwanis Park by way of the El Paso Pathway, South Shore, and Cornell's Drive, until reaching Kiwanis Park at All America Way. We then have the brake route. The brake route starts with our border with the city of Chandler at Price Road, and it continues along the Western Canal multi-use path, past the YMCA at Rural Road, until finally terminating at Ken McDonald Golf Course and that turn north of Western Canal. We have the pedal route, and that is the College Avenue route, which starts at Palmer Park in the US 60 pedestrian bridge and continues until Arizona State University at Apache Boulevard. And finally, our long one, the north-south running Handlebars route, which starts just north of our border with the city of Chandler on Kyrene Canal, just at Knox Boulevard, and continues along Kyrene Canal, where it travels along Western Canal until it meets Hardy Drive, continues along Hardy Drive to the Rio Salado Path system in Tempe Town Lake area, where it meets the Lakeview Drive, and then finally the Crosscut Canal, where it terminates with our border with the city of Scottsdale. These are just some examples, the real-life examples of the signs out there on the streets and on our multi-use paths. And I just wanted to briefly go through some of the routes that are coming soon that are currently programmed in our CIP. So we have the Reflector route, which is the Country Club Way Bike Ped Improvement Project, which starts at the ASU Research Park at Warner Road and continues along Country Club Way to the US 60 pedestrian bridge. We have the Brake Extension or Western Extension multi-use path. This finishes the brake route, and it connects the Western Canals to the soon-to-be constructed Highline Canal multi-use path. We have part of the Sprocket route. That's the 8th Street Streetscape project from Rural to McClintock. And then finally, the Wheel route, which is the Alameda Streetscape project with our border at Phoenix at 48th Street to the I-10, and then picking up from the I-10 to Rural Road, and that's along Alameda Drive. So this is just a graphic showing all of those routes overlaid. You can start to see how they're interconnected and begin to connect these neighborhoods to the various destinations throughout our city. So as far as next steps, we'll continue to incorporate the signage into all of our future projects in hopes that we start to build this holistic system of wayfinding signage. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Anything else, Andrew? Any questions?
Very thorough.
Yeah, it was really good, especially the graphics.
Yeah, we like the little moving bike.
I like him too, yeah. I named him Robert, by the way.
Very good. Very good. All right.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah. So tonight, Mayor and Council, we have a presentation regarding the solid waste financial status.
Hello, Mayor and Council. My name is Jason Brown. I am the Solid Waste Manager. I'm here to present a City Manager update about the solid waste financial status. I would like to start with our overall goals in terms of our budget, the triple bottom line with the social, environmental, and fiscal impacts, keeping rates stable to our residents and customers while exploring new and innovative ways to improve our services. Seen here is a long-range forecast that was presented to Council in September 2014. We had fallen below the required 15% fund balance. Solid waste had been deficit spending the prior 3 years, and we were projected to have a $5 million deficit to our fund balance by 2020. The yellow arrow on the right points to our expected expenditures to reach over $20 million by 2020. Staff committed to go back and devise a plan to rectify the situation using best business practices in order to right-size our budget over the next 4 to 5 years. I'm pleased to say we met our goal in 2 years. We have been able to right-size the budget and hope to increase our fund balance over the 15% in the coming years. We were able to achieve all of this through moderate rate increases with severe reduction in spending. You will see with the yellow arrow on the right that our budgeted expenditures were cut by over $2 million by 2020. We used that business approach to help reduce our spending while improving our services. That business approach consisted of creating routing efficiencies and standards that optimized resources, such as taking direct routes to and from, which in turn allowed us to reduce our fleet. And in addition, we have updated most of our fleet to use alternative fuels, reducing our carbon emissions by over 180,000 metric tons. The graph on the right shows our fuel budget, where we cut almost 50% of our fuel expenses in 2017, and we are on track to do the same in 2018. This is attributed to driving less miles, using less trucks, spending less time on the road, and using clean energy in a majority of our fleet. We also started to monitor overtime closely, starting with the supervisors, because they are the first ones in and the last ones out. They set the example for the rest of the group. We alternated shifts to reduce overtime without sacrificing coverage. A good example of this was covering our Saturday and Sunday operations. We used our guiding principles to develop a vacation calendar for all to ensure staffing minimums. We also started using dashboards in order to ensure we are having effective conversations with our operators and setting goals for our daily tasks. As you can see in the graph, overtime for supervisors has dropped from almost 600 hours to less than 100 hours in 2016. Here are a few of the dashboards that we started using. The first chart shows if a driver has spent the correct amount of time doing a pre- and post-trip vehicle inspection per the Department of Transportation guidelines. Since monitoring this task, we have shown a reduction in breakdowns throughout the day. We have increased our safety by reducing accidents by over 60%. We were over 120 incidents per year, down to close to 40 per year. The middle chart shows how often we were able to leave the yard in time in order to start the route. We use this chart to increase on-route time, which results in less overtime and increased efficiency. The last chart on the right shows how effective the driver is in maximizing their first load of the day. If a driver is too light, it can result in more trips to the landfill. And if they are too heavy, it could cause a safety concern. We installed scales on all the trucks to help monitor the loads for the drivers. And we have seen that we are able to complete routes sooner, where drivers are getting done closer to 4 p.m. versus the 6 to 7 p.m. as they did before. This also has helped in reducing customer complaints. We are off the road sooner, routes completed on time, and we are avoiding causing any further traffic delays in our neighborhoods. Lastly, in 2018 major initiatives, we recently negotiated a 10-year disposal contract with WM, Waste Management. We are looking to save $250,000 in the first year on landfill tipping fees. Recycling is a little bit of a different story that I will update council on in the coming months. We are hoping to expand our compost yard to start diverting and processing new materials. And new onboard computers are coming soon. Our old system is 10 years old and outdated. The new system will reduce the time we spend on data entry and improve our dashboards and conversations even further. Thank you for your time. Any questions?
Any questions? Thank you so much. Good job. Thank you.
Also, on a final note, Mr. Mayor, members of council, I wanted to acknowledge the untimely passing of a valued and longtime city employee, Diane McGuire. She worked in community development for many years, started with the city in 2001, and unexpectedly passed away last week. She was a good friend to many here at the city and an even better friend to animals. She was a great lover of animals and cared for quite a few in her lifetime. And she will be very greatly missed. Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Next is our consent agenda. All the items listed on the consent agenda will be considered as a group and will be enacted with one motion by the City Council unless an item is removed for separate consideration. Members of the public may remove public hearing items for separate consideration. Public hearing items are designated by an asterisk, and council members may remove any item for separate consideration. If you do wish to speak on an item, that is a public hearing item, could you please fill out a speaker's card, which can be found in the back of the council chambers, and please hand it to our deputy city clerk. I'll call your name when it's your turn to speak for public comment. The miscellaneous items 5A1 through 5A11, with the exception of items 5A9 and 5A11, which has been removed from the agenda for separate at the request of our staff. Next is the awards and bids of contracts, items 5B1 through 5B20. Resolutions, items 5C1 through 5C8. Again, any of the items listed on this agenda, it is marked with an asterisk on the consent agenda, is a public hearing item, and it can be removed by a member of the public for separate consideration. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to have a public hearing item removed on the consent agenda as read, with the exceptions of items 5A9 and 5A11? Any? Seeing none, I look for a motion on the consent agendas. Is there, yes? 5C7, yeah. Sorry, Vice Mayor Donna Savage.
Well, Mayor, I was going to pull 5C7.
Okay. And you want to move that to a future?
Are you going to? Especially need to pull it, staff request.
I think we're pulling item 5C7 at the recommendation of the staff. We're removing items 5C7 recommendation of staff. Okay. So we're moving items 5A9, 5A11, and 5C7.
Yeah, Mayor, for clarification, item 5A9 and 5A11 are being deleted from the agenda.
They're being deleted from the agenda.
Thank
but
you.
Item 5C7 is being
Removed for
pulled
separate consideration. Yes.
by staff for a future meeting.
You got to get your crowd together.
Okay. So I don't see anyone in the audience wishing to address any of the items that are a public hearing item. Is there any items from the council on the items that have been read, with the exceptions of 5A9, 5A11, and 5C7? Is there a motion on the consent agenda as read? Moved by Councilmember Shapiro, seconded by Vice Mayor Hernando Savage. Please vote. That motion passes 7-0. Next is our non-consent agenda. All the items listed on the non-consent agenda will be considered separately. Agenda items scheduled for introduction and first hearing will be heard but will not be voted upon at this meeting. Agenda items scheduled for a second public hearing and final adoption will be voted upon tonight. Items 6A and miscellaneous items, bids, contracts, and resolutions. Item 6A1 is to hold a public hearing for an appeal of the March 27, 2018 Development Review Commission's decision to deny an appeal of the hearing officer's decision to allow 2 use permits for the entertainment of indoor and a bar series 6 for 5th Street Prepared Food Market and Bar located at 24 West 5th Street. The appellant is Mark Davis on behalf of the Hayden Square condominiums. This is a public hearing item. 6 right here, right here. Just so everyone knows, item 6A1 is a quasi-judicial item. The council sits, because it is a quasi-judicial item, as a judicial body when hearing appeals. In this situation, the city council must conduct itself as a court, not as a legislative body. So pre-meeting contact with the city council on the quasi-judicial matters is prohibited. Any materials or conversations concerning this item shall only be presented to the city council during this public hearing process. The public hearing is an appeal of the Development Review Commission's decision on March 27, 2018, and this is to deny an appeal of the hearing officer's decision to allow 2 use permits. The first use permit is to allow for indoor entertainment, and the second use permit is to allow a bar series 6. So, Mr. Davis?
Hi,
For the Hayden Square condominiums, you can make your presentation.
thank you so much. We put together a quick little PowerPoint to kind of put some of our thoughts together. First of all, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, thanks so much for having this piece of the ordinance to allow for property owners to escalate something that just doesn't feel right or fit, and allow us to have an opportunity to bring this to your attention and to see if you can act on it. So my name is Mark Davis. I'm a board member, treasurer, and a unit owner in Hayden Square. We don't have hired guns or like outside legal representation helping us, so we're putting this together best we can. So, staff's been very helpful trying to explain to us the process. Hayden Square, if you're not familiar with, it's 118 units. There's 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom homes, and the majority of the units are owner-occupied units. So 3 things I'm going to point out. Hayden Square, you can see with the slanted metal roofs, and then the adjacent property is where the nightclub is proposed, and Maple Street is the street right next to it. The unit I own is the bottom right corner right there. It's a really neat unit with a patio that faces both east and south. Who couldn't come tonight to speak at the public comment portion is one of our other members who came to the DRC hearing, where he explained that he has 2 children that reside in the unit directly behind mine and upstairs. Hayden Square was a mixed-use development that was built well ahead of its time. Interestingly, the property's become more and more homeowner occupied. When we looked at a stat from February 2016 through 2017, 14 different transactions and sales of the property, only 2 of them became rental units. So we're seeing for ourselves, our own community, becoming the reflection of people in Tempe wanting to have a reasonably priced home ownership opportunity. And that's what Hayden Square offers, a terrific location with some good product. Our board has been addressing this issue since their original use permit that was filed last summer. The original use permit that was filed last summer, our community didn't engage the operator. People that were notified it were told it was a restaurant and a prepared food market. So we kind of were misled in terms of how it was defined. But at the end of the day, we did connect with the owner. I personally connected with the owner to try to make some headways and so that we would have a good cooperative relationship. What happened was he had intensified their use. So they created a nightclub, I think it's around 800 person occupant nightclub that they want to have upstairs. And that changed the dynamic from just being a restaurant with a bar to having a kind of a nightclub experience associated with it. So what we were looking for are some protections. We're looking for some conditions or protections for homeowners to allow for this mixed-use development to work. It's not, mixed use, unbridled mixed use with a blank check, it doesn't work. It ends up being a little bit too much push and push. Instead, you have a crafted mixed-use opportunity where a use permit can have conditions laid onto it. Sound travels. So I used to live in this unit right on the corner, and my experience there was when a restaurant had converted to a bar kind of right behind, underneath Gordon Barish or behind their stairwell. What I found personally was that the path of outdoor noise traveled, and it bounced off buildings, and it kind of traveled into the units. So I remedied it. I changed my windows to double pane glass, and worked with the police department to call into complaints, to get the operator to close their doors, and so on. So you try to mitigate it as a homeowner. But what we know is that this can have an impact on property values, this can have an impact on quality of life, an impact on really the trend where this community is going of more homeowners for downtown Tempe. Our experience is that the noise ordinance in place doesn't really apply necessarily to this location very easily, because how you measure things and how you have to take away ambient noise and how it's hard to get your arms around it. So it's a protection that's in place, but just doesn't seem to fit very well here. And that's why a use permit with conditions that protect this community are pretty important, and you can't rely on a noise ordinance. Our community is 118 different owners. Some people own a couple units, but with 118 different opinions. What we've experienced, just like your council has, a lot of different opinions. It's a difficult issue for our community to get our consensus around. And we have many opinions that have different levels of impacts. And many of our units are interior facing, and many of the units are exterior facing. So one key thing I did want to bring out that I've never heard one of our homeowners or any residents, board members, anyone express that they wanted to oppose this location and oppose a good quality operating restaurant to happen there. What we want to have is to have conditions so that the residential and the commercial, can coexist and complement one another. And we have experience of this. So before it became the cabin, it was called Moonshines.
Oh, many things.
Many things, and then Gibson's before that. So so
You
this
just dated
is
yourself.
yes, yeah, probably. So this is their use permit that they're working under. That Moonshine, it's originally not filed under Moonshine's Cabin's working under because it conveys with the property. So they have a no outdoor speaker condition with their, and I'm sorry if it's all fuzzy and stuff, but number 9 up there says no outdoor speakers. And this is a key issue. Immediately to the left there, you can maybe see a little bit of it, is Hayden Square. They don't even have a street in between them. It's more of just maybe a delivery alley kind of area. And this is a condition that we feel would be very important and very helpful to our community to coexist with the new nightclub, bar, and restaurant planned for Maple. And I did include pictures where they did include outdoor speakers or add them, but the code enforcement department, I think, had them get rid of them. But it is an ongoing issue because sometimes they'll just take the speakers and just put them right behind the doors so they're not outdoor. But by definition, if you're amplifying to the outdoor, you've got outdoor music. So it's something that we work hand in hand with these operators with. In this example with the cabin, we were able to get them to change the time they take their trash out, but that issue comes up every time that they have a change of management and so on. Having these things in writing is really helpful to our community so that our board and future boards go back to it. DRC hearing. So at the DRC hearing, there was an issue. And the issue was that the conversation of addressing the criteria and addressing the use permit for the first floor was not permitted. It was only allowed, what was presented to the DRC was that it can only talk about the second floor area. And that's not what we understand. You can't have 2 separate use permits for the same uses at a property. They don't layer on top of each other like a wedding cake. It's one cake. And you can have one or the other. So you are able to talk about second floor and first floor issues at that hearing. But you know, I know that the people that serve on these commissions work in a volunteer capacity. I don't think there was. I think they were in goodwill trying to communicate things. But what we found was that was a discrepancy that maybe maybe could be addressed or could be reconsidered or pushed back to them or something in that direction. And last slide is that we've asked for a number of different conditions to the applicant. We originally started with a big list of like 11, then we narrowed it down to like 5. The big thing that we keep asking them for is to address the noise that you're amplifying on the patio. because they're allowed to do it at 2 a.m. on Wednesday night, Tuesday night, and so on. That's going to impact people that have jobs at State Farm, people that have jobs at ADP. I mean, that's going to have some material impact on people that need to get up in the morning and go to work. This use, I honestly, I think from our community's perspective, if it was facing Mill Avenue, I don't think we'd have any discussion. But it doesn't face Mill Avenue. It faces it, and it's right on Maple. So it needs conditions to really protect our residents. You're probably going to talk at the public section.
I either can or no.
Okay. Michael's our
Michael Miller, I'm the president of HOA. I'm just going to reiterate some things Mark said, actually. I've actually been a resident in, oh, sorry. Can you hear me now? My name is Michael Mueller. I'm the board president at Hayden Square. I'll reiterate some of the things he said. We obviously have had problems with other properties, so I would obviously urge for some restrictions. I've actually worked with Charles and Scott over the last couple of months trying to appease a property of 118 different owners, which is impossible. We made great strides, but it obviously couldn't happen. But I do agree with that stance. At some level, we need to figure out something there. He did propose a speaker plan, which you'll have to consider. But again, we've had different problems there. So,
Thank you.
Anything
That's
else?
all we have. Any questions? We
Any
can
questions?
try to answer them.
We might in a little bit.
Sit close to the front.
Yep.
Okay.
Next, Mr. Humalto.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For the record, Charles Humanel, on behalf of the applicant, Scott Price, who's also here this evening. Just waiting until we get the PowerPoint up. Seems to be the night of PowerPoints. We're the response to the appeal, so we have to prepare a presentation, not knowing exactly what will come up, so I may go over some of these more quickly than others. I think that everyone knows the location, and I think you've seen some slides already today. I think everyone on council probably knows this building is the Trails building. For many, many, many years, it was Trails, which was a head shop, operating under a use permit very similar to what we're talking about here today. It's always been known as a head shop and Trails, but it's actually two different pieces. The piece on the ground floor, which everybody knew as Trails, and there was an office product above it for an awfully long time. A few years back, it was purchased by a new owner. The Trails tenant moved on and went other places, and Scott had an opportunity to open up a restaurant on the ground floor. We sought and received a use permit for the outdoor entertainment and the use permit for the ground floor. After we received that, the landowner came back to Scott and said, I'm going to get rid of my office tenant. Would you think about doing something else here? And Scott has been working, along with many, even here in the city, to create more opportunities for live music, as I think probably everyone here, including Mr. Davis, who, glad he cares still about the community. But when he lived here, before he rented his unit, he was down here in the days when Tempe was really popular for music. And it was, in fact, Hayden Square was built as a music venue. The building itself, though, had an opportunity to become a couple of different things. It didn't start out as Trails. It started out as a telecommunications facility. That's relevant because of its construction, its design, and the materials used. I don't know of another building in Tempe that's on all portions of the building except the windows, which are very few, 16-inch thick block walls. So when you think of a normal building, you might get brick. You usually get some brick and some ephes or stucco, so lots of windows. This building is built for sound. It was built as a telecommunications facility. This is the building that Scott wants to turn the building into, and it does have an outdoor patio area. One of the things Mr. Davis said is if it pointed away from the association, if it pointed towards Mill, he might be okay with that. I do want to point out that you're looking at Fifth Street. You can see just in the distance the red and burnt yellow colors of Hayden Square. This, the outdoor portion, which, by the way, is not what's being appealed here today. It's part of an expanded use permit, but if this permit wasn't approved, we'd go back and use the permit that's in place that wasn't appealed that allowed for this patio. This does actually point towards Mill, not towards the association. This is the side that points towards the association, the unit. I think Mark showed his unit, which is just on the other corner. So Hayden Square was actually built, not accidentally, on purpose, as the first real redevelopment, or one of the first real redevelopments in downtown Tempe, and it was designed to be mixed use. In fact, one of the requirements was to have an amphitheater in it, which it does. You can see the cabin. We've heard an awful lot about the cabin, and I want to make perfectly clear, Scott does not run the cabin. He's never been a manager or owner of the cabin. It has nothing to do with the problems that probably exist there. The cabin, however, was built as a music venue. It was built to be indoor and outdoor. It's built so on 3 different levels. It has windows that open up into the amphitheater. And it's not the kind of building that you would expect to be quiet. Conversely, what we're talking about here today is a building that doesn't have any windows or openings on the 2nd floor, no patios, no porches, no doors to open. And that's where we're talking about having the music, is inside in a way that can't be opened up to the public. It's also worth noting that the blue box is the Hackett House, which the city uses for outdoor music venues occasionally. Trash collection is something that you've heard an awful lot about. I just want to be clear that there are a bunch of these buildings that use trash, and they're all in that same area. So there are multiple trash collecting areas in the same space. Again, you can see that when Hayden Square was originally designed and approved by the city by development agreement, in other words, this was required, some of the things that had to happen were an outdoor amphitheater, and we're indoors, a music venue, which is indoors and outdoors, and also another bar area, which was a music venue. And for many, many years, these 3 areas in Long Long were really the soul of downtown Tempe. It was really known in the 90s as a music venue. And we as a city have spoken quite a bit over the years of trying to get the music back. I think that you kind of know the history, so I'll skip through these.
You forgot Etzel's Attic.
I did forget Etzel's Attic, you're right. But it was also in that same corridor. It was a longer building, not part of this, but just on the other side of that parking lot, just off the map. And you're right, that's a shame that I forgot that. I think that as we look at the appeal, we have to look at the specific grounds that Mark and the HOA has filed. It was not properly filed from the HOA. The request for the use permit to expand liquor use permit to the 2nd floor to allow live entertainment, and then the specific criteria. Let's kind of go over those. And again, I'll try to speed up a little bit. Patio speakers were approved through the DPR, not subject to this approval. I've kind of talked to you about that before. I think there's some confusion here as to how the project grew and what it is today. The prepared foods, the restaurant with liquor sales and bar downstairs is part of an approved use permit that isn't under appeal here today. Now, we're trying to expand that use permit to do that and the upstairs. And the upstairs is a significant portion of what's different. In fact, it's really the only thing that's different other than the things we've conceded to do along the way. Excuse me. I think it's worth pointing out that the live music that we're talking about is part of even your arts and culture plan. One of the things the city of Tempe has spoken about over the last couple of years, bringing more music downtown. It's in your arts plan. I think a year or 2 ago, you even moved to try to get people to get permits and waive the fee for live use permits. I'm going to skip through some of these given the time. Some of the things that the applicant asked for in the past are important. When we came through and received our use permit, after we received the use permit, we continued to talk to Mr. Mueller and some of the other residents. One of the things we didn't want was this patio. Notwithstanding the fact that we could have gone forward with it, it made sense. We understood why they didn't want a patio at Maple and 5th. And Scott and I talked about this quite a bit, and Scott said, you know what, they're right. We'll remove that patio. That's important because that's an area where you would have outdoor speakers that would potentially be up against the neighbors. That patio's gone. It doesn't exist anymore. And although Scott could have done it, he believed it was the right thing and it would be problematic. So you don't have speakers there. The second thing that happened, I think, that's relevant to the outdoor speaker issue is we've had a number of discussions with Mr. Mueller. In fact, as recently as today, and I appreciate Mr. Mueller saying that we've been working well with him. And what he asked us to do was limit the number of speakers, which we've agreed to do, to 10. Limit the size of those speakers, which we've agreed to do at 200 watts, to not have a subwoofer outside. And in fact, in the conversation today, one of the things Mr. Mueller told me was that if that had been the case before his association voted on the appeal, that in fact it would change his opinion and he would no longer vote for an appeal. He's here, you can ask him yourself if that's the case. Another thing that happened was we heard from the association they didn't like the staircase. And if you look at the previous plan, the one on the left, you can see that the staircase was in a different location. That location was more closely aligned with the alignment of Maple and the residents. And so Scott and I talked about it, and we worked, Lisa Lloyd and Chris were here earlier, and they may still be here. We immediately met with Building Safety and tried to find another way to solve the problem. Also, Officer Conway, who I don't think is here, but might be, met with Officer Conway all in the same day to try to figure out a solution. Although it's a more expensive solution, Scott immediately agreed to the new proposed plan, which moves the staircase to the place the association asked us to move the staircase to. Again, these are 16-inch thick walls. The place that we're going to have live music doesn't have any openings. You can't open a window. You can't walk out to a patio. The music is literally inside of 16-inch concrete walls. We have a number of letters of support. You've seen those. I'm not going to go over those again. They're in your packet. But we think it's important to note that people who were previously opposed to this now aren't, and they're associated with the neighborhood association or the HOA, as well as on the board. I think you've seen them. We take pride in the fact that people have worked with us and now changed their position. It's been a long evening already. I'd like to answer questions if you have any, or I could go through the slides more
It's only
slowly.
8, we're just getting started.
No,
We got a lot more
Can you
time.
cue the second and third presentation?
No.
No, I'm kidding.
No.
So are you asking for innovation funds, or what are you asking for?
Well, actually, Mr. Price and I were talking and putting a music venue back in downtown. We think it's quite
All right.
innovative.
Any questions for Mr. Humantle at this time? Thank you. So I do have some cards. I'm going to go through the cards because this is a public hearing item. I'm just going to go through the list we have. You have up to 3 minutes. Mr. Bryce Buchanan.
Hey, council members, mayor. I'm a homeowner at Hayden Square. I've been there for about 3 years now. I also do residential real estate. And personally, from the opportunity of the prepared food bar, I think it's going to be a great experience for our community at Hayden Square and for the city of Tempe. Unfortunately, with what has happened with the appeal process and how long this is taking, I've had Mark and Scott in contact since June because of this opportunity that's happening. And Mark has been not the honest in giving the information to our homeowners association and kind of bearing that interest. And it's been interesting seeing it from my perspective and how all these appeals are fully working out. All in all, I really think this is going to be a big impact with how the city of Tempe is forming in the downtown area. And from working with over 20 different owners within the community, it's not owner-occupied majorly, it's mostly a rental community. I'm 24 myself. So for younger people, this type of project is going to be really important and is going to be an amenity to our community, given the fact that we don't have too many amenities ourselves. So I appreciate your time, and I hope you have some time to think about this, and all is well.
Thank you. All right. Next is Charlie Walkwell. That's you, sir.
Thank you for giving me the time to speak tonight. I purchased my condo about 28 years ago on 5th Street. It borders right off of Maple. And I've seen many bars and restaurants come and go on both sides. I bought the condo there because I wanted to be close to the restaurant district in walking distance, and I've been very happy ever since I purchased my unit. The Fifth Street Prepared Food and Market Bar, I understand that the patio where the music is going to be is borders on the alley off of Fifth Street, which is a good distance from my unit. And I don't feel, since the winds are predominantly from the west and kind of blow down that street, that the sounds will be a problem for Hayden Square unit on that corner. And through the years, where the cabin is now, half of the units are within 20 feet of the cabin, which used to be 4 or 5 different bars in there that all played loud music. And I've been to a lot of homeowners meetings. I've never heard any complaints from any residents about loud music. And as far as the owners of it, I've been in Scott and Kay's other restaurants for, I think, 8 years now, starting with the Chronic Tacos, and they've always done a good job. All their customers are very happy, and they keep going back. And I would be delighted if you approve that, so I could probably walk right out the door and have it close by. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Rockwell.
I appreciate it.
All right, Michael Mueller. Sorry. Van Osteen.
I'm Van Osteen. I'm an owner and resident at Hayden Square. I attended the first commission meeting here a year ago or something. It was a very long time ago. And I saw the PowerPoint. I listened to the discussion. After the meeting, I had a one-on-one with Charles outside the door here. And I left here thinking that this project was going to be a very nice one, a good addition to the neighborhood, something inoffensive. I got home, my wife was out of town, I called her, I said, this is, and this was the impression I was left with, and after all of this discussion, I called her and I said, this looks like a very nice project, and I analogized to Duck and Decanter, if those of you who know the place in Phoenix, long-standing, wonderful place, which really deserves the name Prepared Food Market and Bar. It is all of those things. They sell gourmet food, quality sandwiches and salads. You can eat on the premises, inside or outside. You can take any of that out to go. Well, before the second commission hearing a few months ago, I learned that this was not that at all, and it never was intended to be. This is a nightclub, and that's dishonest to pitch this thing that way. And I assure you, I would bet my last dollar that when this place opens, it will not have a sign on the wall calling it the Fifth Street Prepared Food Market and Bar. It's a nightclub, and its owner, proposed owner, is a nightclub operator. He's got several others in Tempe now. I've been told that there's a noise dispute presently pending regarding one of them. Now, I'm not naive enough to believe that dishonesty is going to derail a nightclub proposal for downtown Tempe. So, giving up on that. But if, what good are 16-inch thick walls if the speakers, 9 or 10 of them, are mounted outside on an open-air patio? And there's a direct line of sight. I stood there on my way here tonight. From that patio, there is an unencumbered direct line of sight to the entire north wall of Hanover, that very pricey luxury apartment complex, and also an unobstructed line of sight view to the east side of it, at least halfway down the building. So those speakers are going to be blasting not only at Hayden Square, but at Hanover also. And I just read recently that you all probably know this, that project just sold. And I believe it was to, Goldman Sachs for a recorded $95 million. How do you think the new owner of that project is going to feel when he starts losing tenants because that entire north side and half of the east side of that property is unobstructed from sound from 9 or 10 speakers on that patio? And there's no reason for this. 16-inch thick walls, put the speakers inside. That's a big building. It's plenty big to house that club. Put the speakers inside and turn the patio outside into what they say this is, a prepared food market and bar. Create the kind of duck and decanter atmosphere on the patio, limit the amplified sound to the inside. This is certain to result in a reduction in property values in Hayden Square when that thing opens and starts blasting music until 2 a.m. virtually every night. It's also going to result in an increased demand for police services when noise complaints are phoned in every night as a result of this project. I mean, this owner ought to do the decent thing. This is for his personal profit, and he's taking it out on hundreds of people who live in Hayden Square and in Hanover. And I ask you to do the right thing, not asking, and I don't know what's required in terms of the technical aspects of this, but the only thing I suggest that you do is ensure that there's no amplified sound on that patio or anywhere else on that project on the outside. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Councilman Shapiro.
Mr. Osteen, just a quick question. The respondent to the appeal? Okay, the respondent made the point that they had been talking with the HOA about some concessions related to the outdoor speakers, and we saw them nod when he said that if they had offered up those concessions earlier, their votes would have been in favor of the project. So it sounds like some of the outdoor speaker issues might have been addressed, at least for some of the homeowners, may have less concern. Do those concessions affect your opinion?
One member of the board came to me some time ago and said that we needed to change our position with regard to these outdoor speakers because the applicant had offered to reduce the number of speakers on that outdoor patio from 10 to 9, and he thought that was a win. I didn't understand it.
It sounds like they also agreed to not have subwoofers outside.
I'm sorry?
It sounds like they also agreed to not have subwoofers outside, which that dramatically impacts the amount of noise.
I don't know the nature of the speakers they're using, but we all know what nightclubs sound like. Again, the Cabin was an example. They were directed to take their outdoor speakers down. And in fact, Mr. Mueller was involved in the project to get those speakers off that building because he said it was horrible, the noise, and he had filed numerous noise complaints. So, you know, I've told any number of my friends about this, these speakers outside 40 feet from Hayden Square, 50 or 60 feet from Hanover, and the reaction is the same by all of them. They say, are you serious? This is crazy. You know, nobody would allow that. I said, well, the commission in Tempe did, and our only hope now is that the council will reverse it.
Councilman Navarro.
Yeah, did they explain to you that the nightclub is inside the two-story structure? It's inside that's where the speakers in the nightclub's going to be. Not the patio area, but it's actually in that bunker AT&T building. So the sound is not going to come out of that building. In fact, there's 2 doors to the stairwell where you have to enter into the building where they shut, and then when you exit, it's another set of doors to get to the outside, so the sound does not travel outside directly. Did they explain that to you?
My understanding is that 9 or 10 speakers are going to be mounted on that outside patio that directly faces 5th Street with a view to Hanover on both sides of the building. Now, maybe I'm wrong about that, and they can clarify it. But if that's the case, this is a huge potential noise problem for everyone who lives there. And if you want anyone other than college students to live in downtown, you have to do something about this.
Mr. Humato, want to
Yeah,
respond to
clarify.
Councilmember Navarro's question?
So I think it's important to step back and understand we're talking about 2 different things. And Mr. Van Osteen may not understand that in this case. What we're talking about is the restaurant that he was upset is going away is not going away. The prepared foods although it may have some different name, which is common when restaurants open. The concept is the same. The ground floor will be a restaurant. It will have an outdoor patio. In fact, we saw, if I could just go back to that image, I think it's a helpful one. The ground floor is exactly what Mr. Van Osteen and I talked about a year ago, or wherever it was. I don't think it was that long, but I'll take his word for it. What's happening upstairs is separate. And so the live music will have speakers inside. The outdoor patio will have up to 10 speakers that are 200 watts without subwoofers. By the way, thank you. It's worth pointing out that I'm told that the speakers that were at the cabin were lots more than 10 and 2,000 watt speakers, not 200 watt speakers. The reason you would want 10 200 watt speakers instead of 4 2,000 watt speakers is because you want people to have conversations. You can play some music in different places without having people have to hear music so loud that if you're next to the speaker, you can't actually talk. Just give me 1 second. Let me get to that image. So this image here, I think, shows well where the 10 speakers will be. It's an outdoor patio area. You'll be served food there. We have a chef here. Stand up for a second, if you would. He's a 5-star chef that Scott has hired. He's worked in some pretty famous places, and he's here to take over the restaurant portion. Separately, in the evenings, in the area that you can see up above, the second floor, will be the live music area. And it's worth pointing out that this is the area. We have a use permit in place that wasn't appealed for this. We could go back and still, we can't have outdoor entertainment in that area, nor are we planning to, but we certainly can have a bar in that area. What we're saying is, in addition to doing that, we have essentially a second business, and that second business is the concert venue, which is upstairs on the second floor. Councilman Navarro, does that answer your question? I'm not sure if that clarifies it or not.
No, that does. It sounds like, and I think what I'm hoping not to get the confusion is having outdoor type club speakers in the patio versus outside speakers that normal restaurants have. Just music and sound. That's what my take is. Yeah, and the club stuff is inside the building.
You're absolutely right. 200 watt speaker is not a big deal. That's why those are outside. It wouldn't do much in a concert venue. You'd have a much bigger, in fact, you've seen people walk in with big amps. A 200 watt speaker is more like a car speaker.
Councilman Granville? Councilman Granville?
Quick question. Can you go back to the patio? And I understand I'm mixing two things together, and I apologize. My assumption is that those chairs and that doesn't all get taken out and made space for standing room only, does it?
The indoor music, the concerts, will not be heard outside. They're two separate things that are happening. So,
sorry, can you repeat that? I got distracted
my
there.
Apple Watch was answering this question.
Yeah.
Hey, Siri. The answer to the question is no. The area that you're looking at now is not part of the concert venue. It won't be part of the concert venue ever. You have to be inside to hear the concert venue. This is essentially a separate business as part of the same
I think
business.
the concern is, I understand they're two separate things, that there are times when you'll walk down Mill Avenue and there'll be a restaurant-like-ish area that's being effectively used as a club area. The chairs have been taken out, the tables have been pushed to the side or whatever, and it becomes, it doesn't have a restaurant-like atmosphere, even though it might be technically a restaurant, if that makes sense. And so I'm just trying to figure out a way to explain.
I think that the restaurant will change throughout the day, and I think that as it gets later in the evening, it will change character, as every place does. I think you're right. If you can't find a place on Mill Avenue that doesn't change in character some, but the music venue that we're talking about on the second floor will not be playing music, and you won't have people clearing out for the music venue in that area.
I think the concern, if you mind me paraphrasing, I think the concern is that this turns into an equivalent of El Jefe after 9 o'clock at night.
Probably can't say much more than that to offend Mr. Price. He doesn't run El Jefe, but I get your point. Mr. Price owns Casa, which is across the street. And I would invite you on any evening to go and see what happens at Casa and then see what happens. I get your point. But frankly, it's sort of moot because if we don't get the music venue, we still have a use permit for what you're talking about right now. in place today.
Councilman Navarro?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. With that being said, I mean, you know, Mill Avenue, obviously, and Mill Avenue and 5th and 4th and 6th, we all know that it's a music destination. It has been a music destination. I'm going to be the first to tell you I'm in full support, and I've been doing things to promote live music because this is the area for it. We choose to live down here because of the vibrancy. We choose to live down here because of the things that go on here. One of the things that I enjoy about this is there's no real direct competition like you will have, like where Casa is or around that area when you have competing bars. Yes, noise does go up and stuff because, you know, louder music and all that stuff, which is, I have to say, is somewhat appropriate. This doesn't have that flavor on this avenue. It's strictly almost, it's just itself. I kind of take this as more of a crescent ballroom where you have the concert venue inside, and then as you walk in and out, you actually are in more of a restaurant. Let your ears calm down a little bit, which is very strategic, in my opinion, when you're having concerts. You want an area to let your ears kind of mellow out. But yes, you have an atmosphere and you're very close to it. So I don't see this different. I see a very different tone compared to other restaurants on Mill to where this is at. You know, restaurants, and this is my opinion, when you talk about speakers and everything like that, you have to have music outside. I think you don't enjoy the atmosphere with a plain just nothing going on. You got to have some vibrancy. So I agree that we're not talking about what's going on outside, and we're talking about the use permit upstairs. And I have to say, it just seems appropriate compared, knowing what that building used to be and how thick that building is. I'm like, if there's going to be live music in one building compared to all the buildings including Gibson's or whatever it used to be and what it is now, my God, that is the best place to do live music, hands down. Can't dispute it.
Well, Charlie's been to Casa many times. I've never seen him on the bar at El Jefe. I don't think he's going to dance on that bar, so he picks his locations carefully.
Thank you. Mr. Davis?
Oh, I just wanted to kind of follow up on Mr. Spire's question about how our board engaged the concession for controlling the size of the speakers. We talked about it and kind of over email or just through exchanges. We didn't hold a special meeting to really formally address it. What I did research the speakers that they proposed, and they were gauged to have plenty of sound to go 150 feet away. This is a little bit outside my wheelhouse, but my recommendation to our board was, can this operator hire a sound engineer to address this issue instead of us trying to shoot for the hip to find a ambient noise that doesn't disturb the residences and to control that. And that was kind of our creative solution that we definitely wanted to touch on. So I just wanted to kind of circle that loop that Vance wasn't really part of because he's not a board member, he's a homeowner.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience wishing to address us on the public comment under item 6A1? I'll close that public portion of it. Any other comments or discussion from the council on any of the comments that have been made or for the appellant and also the applicant? Any other questions from the council on this? Okay, so yes, Councilmember McCubey.
Just that I think made very clear, Mr. Humantel and Councilmember Navarro, that the food market, the restaurant, has already been approved. Its use permit and its sound has already been approved. So I don't understand why you're objecting to that when it's already been approved. And the indoor music venue is something that's another. Yeah, maybe explain to me where your reasoning is, because it seems.
I appreciate that. We've like I said earlier, we started with a laundry list of 10 items, right. 11 items that had to deal with when trash gets picked up, propping doors open or not, and so on. So we asked them to engage us on that outdoor speaker issue as a big issue to us, and our board was willing to to allow the outdoor speaker and negotiate the outdoor speaker issue. Even though the club upstairs, because they moved the entrances to the alley and away from the north side was a huge help. And I mean, that was a cooperative piece that happened. But we really don't want the outdoor music. We see this as a big issue. We missed the opportunity.
Not an outdoor music venue, it's an indoor music venue on the second floor.
The music venue is outdoor, but they have the use permit allows for outdoor speakers. We wanted to be consistent with the cabin with no outdoor speakers, and we thought that that was the right thing to do to protect our residents in our neighborhood.
Okay. All right. Any other comments from council under item 6A1? Now, we have to have there's two issues here. The first one is for the council for us to decide on is a use permit appeal number 1, which if you approve the appeal of the DRC's decision, if you find in favor of the appellant, then that basically is going to deny the permit. If we deny the appeal of the DRC's decision and find in favor of the Design Review Commission, the original applicant effectively will allow the use permit. Does everybody understand that? So I look to the council for a motion on the first question on the option on the use permit on appeal 1.
Mayor, can I clarify, use permit number 1 is to allow the outdoor entertainment?
Correct.
Thank you. Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry, I just read it wrong, to allow indoor entertainment. Sorry.
Permit 2 is regarding a bar Series 6 license. So the first is to allow indoor music. So no. If you approve it, you're going to deny the use permit with the DRC said.
Mayor, I move to deny the appeal of use
I
permit 1.
said it right the first time.
You did.
So there is a motion to deny the appeal, and there's a second. It's moved by Councilman Shapiro, seconded by Vice Mayor Hernando Savage. If there's any further comments or discussion, please vote. Motion passes 7-0. The next question is regarding a use permit to allow a bar Series 6. And to approve the DRC's decision, find in favor to effectively deny the use permit. To deny the appeal of the DRC's decision, finds in favor of the DRC, so kind of same thing, for the original applicant and effectively allow the use permit with the conditions adopted by the Design Review Commission. So if you move to approve,
Mayor, I move to deny the appeal of use permit 2.
It's been moved to deny the appeal of use permit for the bar Series 6, and it's been seconded by Vice Mayor Hernando Savage. Please vote. That motion carries 7-0. The next item 6A2 is to approve a 1-year contract renewal. Give this for Gita, please. With a LNG Technologies LLC for the supply of liquefied natural gas to the support of the city transit fleet operation at the East Valley Bus Operations and Maintenance Facility. Is there any comments or discussion from the council on item 6A2? Is there a motion on item 6A2? Moved by Councilman Navarro, seconded by Vice Mayor Hernando Savage. Please vote. That motion passes 7-0. Item 6A3 is to approve a 1-year contract renewal with Somerset Contracting for the installation of landscaping and irrigation for street beautification and right-of-way landscaping projects for the Public Works Department. Is there any comments or discussion from the council on item 6A3? If not, is there a motion on item 6A3? Is it moved by Councilman Navarro, seconded by Councilmember Keating? Please vote. That motion passes 7-0. Next item 6A4 is to adopt a resolution authorizing a maximum dollar amount for the individual job order of up to $2.1 million for the purpose of procuring construction services for the water line replacement project at 5th Street and Farmer Avenue to College Avenue. Any comments or discussion from council? If not, is there a motion on item 6A4? It's been moved by Councilmember Cubey. Is there a second? Second by Councilman Navarro. Please vote. The motion passes 7-0. Item 6A5 is to award a job order number 21 to Archer and Gardner Construction LLC and a professional services contract to Stanley Consultants Incorporated for the water line replacement project for 5th Street from Farmer Avenue to College Avenue. Any comments or discussion from council or a motion item 6A5? It's been moved. Is there a second? It's moved by Councilman Keating, second by Councilman Granville. Please vote. Motion passes 7-0. Item 6A6 is to approve an increase to the contract amount with Remy Street Incorporated for the purchase of a third-party software maintenance and support services for PeopleSoft Financials, Human Services and Resources, and Payroll. I guess it's not paper payroll or hand payroll. Is there any comments or discussion from the council on item 6A6? As was stated before. Is there a motion on item 6A6? Moved by Councilman Shapiro, seconded by Councilmember Granville. Please vote. Motion passes 7-0. Item 6A7, approve the additional funding contract addenda with Archer Gardner Construction LLC and PLC Construction Incorporated to perform underground utility construction and wastewater improvements. Any comments or discussion or a motion on items?
Motion.
Wait. Yeah, 6A7. Moved by Councilman Navarro, seconded by Councilmember Keating. Please vote. That motion passes 7-0. The next section of the consent agenda, of the non-consent agenda, is ordinance and items for introduction and first hearing. These items will be read and introduced tonight, but no votes will be taken. The second hearing of these votes will be for these items are scheduled for June 7th, 2018. Ordinance and items for introduction and first hearing. Item 6B1 is to introduce and hold a first public hearing to adopt an ordinance authorizing the abandonment of a 12-foot easement for irrigation and public utility purposes located in a subdivision south of Carver Road and east of 70th Street. The second and final public hearing is scheduled for June 7th, 2018. This is a public hearing item, and I do have one card. Mr. Whitney Wright. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence for the record.
Yes, Dr. Whitney Wright and my builder, Brandon Millon. We thank you, council members, for hearing us, Mayor, Vice Mayor. So we have a 12-foot easement on our property that we recently purchased that is part of a proposed street of 70th Street that the city of Tempe has been planning to build for more than 50 years. And they have not completed that street. And so what's happened is all of the people who have their property that borders that easement haven't built anything there. And because of that, there is an alleyway that is unkempt and has been overgrown for quite some time and has been the area that has been known in the neighborhood for nefarious activity. There have been different reports over the years of drug paraphernalia, of teenager, hangouts, and it is supposed to be maintained by the city, but that doesn't happen. So what I would like to do is propose that easement be removed so that we can use that property as pasture on our horse property and actually keep it clean and improve the area and the look of the street in the neighborhood.
Okay. If we could have staff come forward. First of all, does any council members have any comments or questions for Mr. Wright? Chad, can you help us out here? So we're looking to we're looking to adopt an ordinance abandoning a 12-foot easement for irrigation and public utility purposes. Obviously, this is a first hearing. Can you enlighten us?
Well, so the street or paper street that has not been paved is actually adjacent to this piece of ground. It does contain infrastructure for water. The piece that you have in front of you for abandonment is presumably where that infrastructure was planned to go, but never did. And so we found it to be unnecessary and are willing to remove that easement off of this property. So
it would go to Mr. Wright?
I'm sorry?
Would that easement go, would it be?
Well, if this was the applicant, I guess I don't know who the applicant is offhand, but yes, the particular property owner that applied for this asked to have the easement removed, and we are in favor of that. So yes, the property is owned by a private party.
Okay,
so
but it's not Mr. Wright.
So.
It is Mr. Wright now. I actually own the adjacent lot. I sold that acre and a half to Mr. Wright, about 9 months ago. I actually filed for another abandonment in the middle of that land that you guys approved last summer. It's the same deal. There's no.
Oh, it's a split
It's the
property.
same property, so
Okay.
there's no utilities or irrigation running through that property right now. It's really just a blank piece of land that's taking up actually nothing. So, and our fear is if we don't take that land and a fence gets built there, there's actually an area now that criminals can look over the fence, spy on his family, or other things like that.
Oh, I know where you are. I go by it every day. Okay.
West side.
Sir, could I get your name for the
Yeah.
record, please? Okay, thank you.
I got you. Yeah. Okay. We're good.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is a public hearing item. Anyone else like to make a comment? Again, this decision is not going to be decided until June 7th. Thank you. Item 6B2 is to introduce and hold a first public hearing to adopt an ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute reciprocal easement agreements between Springbrook Development LLC and the city of Tempe across a shared drive located between lots 4 and 5 of the Pier 202 amended subdivision at 1190 East Vista del Lago Drive. The second final public hearing is scheduled for June 7th. This is a public hearing item. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to address this under item 6B2? Could you please get my attention? Seeing none, any comments or discussion from council? Next is item 6B3 is to introduce and hold a first public hearing to adopt an ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute a parking easement and agreement with Springbrook Development LLC for a portion of Lot 5, Pier 202. The second and final public hearing is scheduled for June 7, 2018. This is a public hearing item. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to address this under item 6B3? Could you please get my attention? Seeing none, move on to item 6B. The next section is the agenda item scheduled for a second public hearing and final adoption that will be considered now. These items were read and introduced on April 26, 2018, and votes will be taken tonight. On the C, ordinance and items for second hearing and final adoption, item 6C1 is to hold a second and final public hearing to adopt an ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute documents to transfer title to certain property located at 509 South Mill Avenue to Reds Moviola Incorporated and acknowledge termination of a lease. This is a public hearing item. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to address us on this item? Could you please get my attention? Seeing none, any comments or discussion on council? Is there a motion on item 6C1? Moved by Councilmember Granville, seconded by Councilmember Cubey. Please vote. That motion passes 6-0 with Councilmember Keating absent. Item 6C2 is to hold a second and final public hearing to adopt an ordinance approving the conveyance of certain city-owned land located at 1120 East Apache Boulevard, the northwest corner of Apache Boulevard and Terrace Road to Gilbane Development Company, and authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute a development and disposition agreement of one of more deeds and other related documents necessary to effect such conveyance and other transactions. Item 6C2 is a public hearing item. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to address us under item 6C2? Could you please get my attention? Seeing none, I'll close that portion. Any comments or discussion on item 6C2? Is there a motion on item 6C2?
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Granville, seconded by Vice Mayor Indano Savage. Please vote. That motion passes 6-0 with Councilmember Keating absent. Next item is item 6B3, is to hold a second and final public hearing to adopt an ordinance for an amended planned area development overlay and development plan review for a new 21-story mixed-use development consisting of 269 dwelling units and commercial uses for the collective located at 708 South Myrtle. The applicant is Gamage and Burnham. This is a public hearing item, and I'm going to look to Ms. Vaz, and then we're going to have a statement and then get a briefing from our staff. Ms. Vaz.
Mayor. Mr. Mayor, members of council, for your record, my name is Manjula Vaz, law firm of Gamage and Burnham. I am here tonight on behalf of Core Spaces. The project is called The Collective at 7th and Myrtle. I'll give you a brief presentation kind of on the zoning, then I'm going to turn it over to Jeff Zaleska, who's our architect, kind of walk through some of the architecture and talk to you a little bit about parking, and then we're happy to talk to you and answer any questions. Core Spaces develops many luxury apartments in several different locations. Just briefly, there's some locations both developed under the James and Madison, the Collective in Portland, and the Collective in Ann Arbor. Briefly, I think we know the site is at the corner of 7th and Myrtle. Go through this fairly quickly. Our request today is to amend the PAD, the Plan Area Development, to establish new standards and to produce design, landscape, and site plan standards. As you may remember, this PAD was approved in 2008 to allow a residential building at this site, which is 306 feet in height. The development today is a reduction of 54 feet in height and is a reduction in the number of residential units as originally entitled. The project matches just briefly with the general plan and the density approved in the general plan. I just want to touch on this briefly. This project is consistent with the draft area character plan. In terms of the character area plan, it calls for increasing residential population. This project also connects people to places in terms of living. We've designed it to support shade and active ground floor, which Jeff will talk about. We certainly foster economic development through the region. And we think this improves both the quality and accessibility and redevelopment of these infill parcels. So I'm going to turn it over to Jeff briefly to kind of go through some of the projects and the specifics of the plan, and then we'll come back and talk to you about, answer any questions.
City Council members, my name is Jeff Salisco. I'm a senior principal with Antunovich Associates. We're architects with offices in Chicago and Washington, D.C. We're working with Core Spaces on this project. We've worked with them on several similar projects. And as a big core portion of our business, we do market rate, luxury residential buildings, mixed-use buildings just like this. This is a specialty of ours. Want to give you a little recap on the numbers, and I'll get into the design a bit. So this building is a 22-story building with 252 feet. We have 269 units in this building. We have approximately 6,000 square feet of retail within the building. There's 5 floors of parking. Those floors hold 157 spaces. We also have 29 moped parking spaces and 336 bike parking spaces. So those are important components, of course. As you know, the site is at 7th and Myrtle at that corner. A very important component of this building is the relationship of the first floor to the streetscape and to the sidewalks. In the case of this building, we have the retail areas that run along 7th Street and wrap around onto Myrtle. Along those areas, we have lush landscape planter beds that will create an edge against the street. Very important elements, and we'll provide mature trees that surround the landscape and the streetscape. We have wide sidewalk areas, and there's also essentially what we like to call pocket parks, where there's little seating areas that's open to the public, and anyone can use those spaces. So these are all important components that make the street an important, successful element. Also, and I'll get to this a little bit more in the renderings, we have a canopy element that wraps around almost the entire building on those 2 streets, and that helps really. I'm going to go to the next page. So this 8.5 foot deep component creates a real, with that along with these landscape planters, creates a real space, almost like an outdoor room that's defined by this. And you can see how this landscaping creates an edge in front of the street, and then this element really creates sort of an enclosure to a certain extent. So this is also a great component where we have glassy retail. There's cases where this retail, here's another image that's up even closer. We can have nano-wall components that really creates an indoor-outdoor space that will be great here for certain times of the year. So again, it creates a real outdoor space. Very important for this building to be successful, for the retail to be successful. This component also wraps around onto Myrtle, so now you're looking towards 7th Street. Again, you see the component with the lush landscaping. We've faded the trees back so you can see the building, but there are large shade trees also along that edge and that large canopy component. And then another view looking towards, that's the collective entry on Myrtle Street. Again, very important elements, this greenery that we have at the street. When we talk about the overall design of the building, we went to great lengths to really break down the components of the building. So the retail base, glassy, covered with this canopy, and then the parking elements above that, we also wanted to make that element break separately from the elements above. So that element of the building is less than 60 feet tall. And at that point, we set the building back and we create a really strong component with column bays that really defines that base of that building and breaks it down from the residential portion above. So the portion that's on 7th Street sets back over 6 feet, and then the component on Myrtle sets back over 6 feet at the 6th floor, and then it sets back 1'8" as it rises up. Also, when we look at the building from this location, there's a very powerful balcony element that creates a verticality in the building that wraps integrally into a canopy component that's up at the roof, garden, and pool terrace. This is a view looking across 7th, and I think this is a really important view because it shows the vision lines between our building and the proposed Westin, and also the proposed Opus buildings that are across Myrtle Street. And this also shows there's a very delicate nature to this building. Although it's 22 floors, it's less than 90 feet wide, and it's a really slender building. It's not a very massive building. It's actually very delicate in character. We've also gone out of our way as the building wraps around where we have a couple of colors. So there's some things as you move around the building, it changes in character a little bit while it maintains many of the same components. Also, I wanted to point out this view is a useful view. Our building is 252 feet. The proposed Westin is 240 feet, but it's a much bigger footprint of a building by comparison to ours. So although it's very similar in height, it's a much bigger building. The buildings across the street on Optima, the one in front off of 7th, is approximately 160 feet. The one that's further back towards the south is 240 feet. So those are buildings of a similar height, although they're much bigger in their scale and their footprint. Another view, this is looking towards 7th Street along Myrtle. Again, you see where as we wrap around the building, we go out of our way intentionally to really break down the parking base of the building from the residential portion above. An important element with the building, and I've been talking a little bit about it, is this base. And this is a view looking across the Westin area where the cars enter and exit the building. Again, that base of the building is an important component, and you can see really carefully here how the residential portion does step back significantly, and we really feel, even across the street, what you're feeling is more the 55-foot base than what happens above it because of the setback and because of the different character. Here's another view closer up to the corner, and again, that base is really what you feel, the presence that you feel more than what's above. And even across the street, you feel the importance of this canopy element, how it creates this closure within the streetscape and on that sidewalk. A couple of these are more diagrammatic, but I think they're important. So this is the view that shows the setback of the residential portion above the 5th floor along 7th Street. So you see that 6-foot setback before it rises up. And then this is the view cut along Myrtle. Again, you see that setback of 6'4" for the what's the amenity level of the building, and then it comes back out, but it still sets back 1'8". A couple of other important elements with this drawing here is we're 47 feet, more than 47 feet from the face of our building to the Westin, and then to the Union, to the Opus buildings, we're 73 feet to the taller component of their building. So there are great view quarters and great separation between our building and these other buildings. So with that, I'd like to pass this on to Andrew Wiedner to talk a little bit about parking, and then we'll take, I think, questions after that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you for having me here tonight. My name is Andrew Wiedner, and I'm with Core Spaces. For nearly 20 years, our team at Core is focused on urban infill, mixed-use developments. And one of the biggest changes that we've seen over time has been a reduced reliance on cars and personal car ownership. The benefits of this are great, including increased public transit usage, reduced traffic and congestion, improved road safety, and also reduced cost of living. The average person who owns a car spends an average of $700 a month on a car, and it's become an important choice, or an easier choice for people to abandon their car over time because of this. We're all, I think everyone here is aware of the rise of Uber, Lyft, and Zipcar and the other companies out there. For us in the multifamily development world, it's been one of the biggest technology disruptors. And we've seen the influence has only continued to grow, its exponential growth, and to imagine where we'll be even a couple years from now, we'll see just a tremendous impact and also continue to reduce reliance on car ownership. We've studied this on both a national and a local level here in Tempe and are highly confident that our project provides more than enough parking to make our project a success. Our target market here are the young professionals, the families, and baby boomers who want to live, work, and play in the downtown area. And we see Tempe as a perfect community for our collective brand because of the things that exist here, like the incredible biking culture. Our location, in fact, is a 98 out of 100 on the bike score. And to see the Bike It program that was presented here earlier was great as well. There's great transportation options that exist, all very close to the building. And then when you bring it within the building, we're going to be providing car share, 5 car share vehicles that'll be open to our residents at any time. We're providing 25% more bikes than the already increased level per the downtown bicycle code. And we're providing 29 moped spaces because we've been seeing an increase in popularity in those across the country as well. I think the last point that I would leave you with, I know we're asking for a reduction in parking as compared to code, but we're not trying to say that all of Tempe is going to be abandoning their cars here in the next few years. What we are saying is there's a target market for us, and there's a subset that exists. And for a location like this and our type of product, it makes sense to have a reduction in parking, and we feel like we have more than enough provided here. Thank you very much.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
With the comments that you just mentioned, were you willing to help support the streetcar to be part of the assessment?
You want to talk to that?
Well, I mean, he was talking about, I know, but he's talking about the importance of Uber and Lyft and everything else and all the different parking, but relying on that would be, we have public transportation. Would you guys be supportive of being part of the assessment for the streetcar?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, we're happy to have a conversation with them. We got the agreement like last week, and we certainly have just looked at it. But certainly we can have this conversation. We're happy to look at it and help support the streetcar. Yes.
I know, but we're at the second hearing, so that's why I was asking. Unless you want to continue it?
No, I mean,
Okay.
if Mr. Mayor, if you're asking me if we'll support the streetcar right now, sure, we'll support the streetcar. We have a contribution, that's what you're asking. As long as we can have your, we appreciate your support. If we support the streetcar, we would appreciate your support.
I want to ask a question. I'm going to wait for the rest of the presentation.
Yeah, no, so we are done right now. I mean, we would like to
Done?
I know
Okay.
you have a lot of questions.
Yep,
I
we
mean,
have
we'd
some
like to
speakers.
talk a little bit more parking. I have a comment from, I know the staff had some conditions relating to parking, which we do support. We've had a lot of conversations with both Chad and Ryan about parking. We have one change to make that I believe Ryan and I agree in terms of staff condition number 6. Ryan, if you don't mind me putting it up here. The general new condition Brian had, number 6, we originally had, we had a conversation both with the staff and with Councilmember Granville actually about providing more public parking spaces in the building. And so Brian had proposed 18, and we've talked about, we have actually 9 spaces outside adjacent to our site, and we provide another 9 interior to the parking garage. That'll be public parking spaces and they'll be metered part of the downtown parking. And I believe that's Ryan, that's correct. So we'd like to change just the number 18 to 9 and number 6. And we then are fine with the rest of the stipulations the staff has proposed relating to parking.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions? Well, I'm sure we're going to have more questions because we have some public comment.
Okay.
All right. I do have one card, Mr. Lawrence Pabuda. Please state your name and place of residence for the record.
My name's Larry Paboda. The address is 8149 East Wingspan Way, Scottsdale. And Mayor Mitchell and council members, I'm employed by the Opus Group, and we are the developer of the Union Tempe at University and Forest. I appreciate you taking the time to meet with me during the past week. As I mentioned to each of you when we met, we do not oppose development at this site. We do not oppose appropriately scaled height, nor do we oppose the multifamily apartment concept offered up by CORE. We do, however, think it is important to revisit the discussion we had with you all. I should mention all but for Councilman Keating, who was not yet seated at the time. There were key themes that were discussed as key city priorities: activating University Drive, creating multiple points of interaction for the community with our project, and creating a strong pedestrian link along 7th Street, connecting Mill Avenue to College Avenue with reduced densities, setbacks, and reduced heights along 7th Street. We engaged in a 9-month process of meeting with the city staff, council, ASU, our immediate neighbors, and retailers along Mill Avenue, a collaborative process that brought the best ideas to the table from all the stakeholders. Throughout this process, we settled on several compromises. We lowered the heights of each of our towers. We moved the tallest tower to the middle of the site. We created significant setbacks from 7th Street with walk-up city homes and city flats. We are proud of the project that we are building: 31,000 square feet of vibrant retail space, 407 apartments, and a 200-key Canopy by Hilton hotel. We can look back on those key initiatives that you shared, and we believe we are achieving all of those objectives. We've shared this vision with our future residents and retailers and have described the pedestrian orientation that the city envisioned, creating setbacks, heavy landscaping, and appropriate scale. Today, we are unclear on the guiding principles for the city, and it will be important for us and others to understand what the city stands for. What is most important? Is every project a good project? How should we think about the future of 7th Street? There are a lot of people watching this process, including investors and other property owners in the downtown district. We fully expect to be active in the city of Tempe for many years to come. We believe in Tempe, and we've demonstrated that during our short time in the community, in the city, via our community support of TCAA, the Tempe Schools, the DTA, Tempe Salutes, the Salvation Army, and most significantly, a $1 million contribution to the streetcar. As developers, we make commitments to develop projects. Beyond that, we should also be stewards of the community. What impact do our projects have on the community, both current and past projects? Have we added meaningful value to the community? We take this commitment seriously. We encourage you to continue to give thoughtful consideration. Tempe is a great city. It is your responsibility to ensure that each project that comes before you is similarly a great project. Thank you.
Thank you. Is anyone else in the audience wishing to address item 6C3? Now's the time to get my attention. And none. Any comments or discussion from the council on item 6C3? Vice Mayor?
You can make
That's
a
fine. There's a
motion.
motion and there's a second to approve. We're going to have comments. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. Right, just a couple of things. First and foremost, I just want to say thank you to Core Spaces for wanting to be a part of this Tempe community. I really appreciate it. You know, of course, I always think Tempe is the best place to be, and everybody should want to be here. But I know that's not the case all the time, and I want to say thank you to Core Spaces. I know, actually, I think when we met, I talked about one of the very first projects I voted on was the hub at the time, and I think that was your very first development, if I remember right, in the city of Tempe, or now it's called University House. correct? So anyway, I think you know pretty much exactly what I'm going to say when it comes to my comments here tonight. Other than I do appreciate you wanting to be in the city of Tempe, but I do have a lot of reservations about this project moving forward. One, first and foremost, I really do feel like we're trying to put a circle in a square. This is a really small piece of land. I get that, I respect that, and I understand you trying to maximize it and realize that the price of the land does really impact the design and what we have to do to try to, of course, I think as any business is, wants to make money, and I can appreciate that. But the increased density from where we were to where we are, from 214 to 672, is so hard for me to swallow. I just don't think that's gonna, I just can't get there. I think that's just too dense and too big for that area, that small of a space. I know we talk about the height, and I understand the height, but when we talked about the original zoning and where it was, it had to do with the entire block, which now we've kind of broken it up and we're in pieces. And I understand that too, and I'm trying to be respectful of that. And I'm really trying to be respectful of being a really good business-friendly, business-supportive community. And I think to do that, it has to do with consistency. And for me, consistency is everything. It's about being honest, and it's about sticking to our guiding principles that we've been following. I don't disagree that I think times are changing and there's some evolution to be had, and I think we're going to see that when we get our urban core study back, whatever that may be when it comes to least density, more density, less parking, more parking. But I know we're going to get some of that information that we need so we can change our policy, so we can continue to evolve with our guiding principles. But until then, I want to be consistent, and that reduction of parking is another piece that I have a lot of concerns with, and I think you know that. And regardless of what happens here tonight, because I feel like you have really laid a lot on alternative modes of transportation. You know, when you talk about shared car spaces and you talk about scooters and bicycles and all the things that you're doing there, it totally, completely makes sense in my perspective for you to support the streetcar. I think that comes along with what you're trying to do and what you hope to do and what your guiding principles are. And I think that would be really great. And also, I think we talked a lot about, when we had a meeting, about your involvement in the city of Tempe and what that looks like in this community. Because to date, in the 8 years that I've been on this council, I haven't seen it. And it would be really important, I think it's very important for any business that comes to the city of Tempe to be a great partner, to want to be a part of this community and be part of the Tempe family. Like I said, when I met with you, it was tough, and I know you weren't really willing to budge in any of those areas, and I respect that, but tonight I will not be able to support this project. Thank you, Mayor.
Anyone else? Councilmember Keating? Or Councilmember Keating?
So, yeah, this one is a difficult decision for me because I wish the height were smaller. I know that you have a challenge in the space that you purchased. I also know that the space that, Larry, that you're talking about, you were able to move your height into the interior of the block, and that's not really a possibility for this development. I'm actually, well, I'm pleased with the limited parking. In fact, I'd like to see less parking even, because this building will appeal to people who do not want to drive, and you show that in the way you've composed the bike stalls and all the rest. One of the things I'm really pleased about, and I probably should put it out there, and I assume this is the way it's going to be, but that you are embracing the apprenticeship programs and that you're committed to working with highly skilled workers, and that will be demonstrated with participation and work with apprenticeship programs. Am I correct in making that assumption? So I'm really pleased about that because this is going to, pardon? And it would be, Manjula, could you come up and talk about that aspect of it? Because we know that Tempe's workforce and developing our workforce, especially for your younger people, is very important to our city, and our values are reflected in the way we build, not just what we build, but in how we build it. So if you could speak to that issue.
Oh, to the, Mr. Mayor, Councilman Kubi. We are certainly committed to working. We've talked to Israel, but we're committed to working with Israel and its contractors to use, skilled apprenticeship programs. and having them participate in the process.
Sorry, the way we've been defining apprenticeship programs is that they need to graduate journeymen 3 out of the last 5 years, I believe. So if that's amenable to your definition.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Councilwoman Cooney, Israel said that he would send us qualified people that meet that definition. So I will agree on those definitions.
So although I would like to see that the height be lower, that's not going to be conditional on my approval, and I'll be supporting your project tonight.
Thank you.
Councilmember Keating.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to get on record that you will be supporting the streetcar.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Keating, we will be supporting the streetcar agreement as, I think, as the one that, I mean, we've seen it for a week, but the one that Alex sent us, yes.
Okay. Just some comments on the project itself. I don't have a problem with the height. If anything, I'd like to see it taller, maybe a little bit denser. You know, I don't know how you could do that, but you know how
97%.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, maybe if 100 stories would be denser. Now, anyway, I really like the project. I've been to Ann Arbor recently, and I didn't get a chance to see the collective there, but that's a very cool city, and I'm pleased that we're kind of following in their footsteps as far as what kind of developments we're going to have and what kind of housing we're going to have. We need housing in the city of Tempe very badly. We are short on units, so I will be supporting this project tonight on the condition that you will be supporting the streetcar. Thank you.
Councilman Navarro.
Mayor, thank you. Listen, I've enjoyed what you guys have done in the presentation and the development and the pictures and how it looks, and it looks great. Obviously, I expressed this earlier. My concern is working with the surrounding area and reaching out with Opus and reaching out with any other players that would basically be adjacent to this project and just listen to concerns. And that's kind of one of the biggest things that I want to make sure that those things are ironed out. That's why I was more or less in favor of maybe doing a continuance to let those things happen if that were advantage to make a better product out there. And I was going to pitch that to you or the council on trying to do a continuance just to see if there's anything else any questions or any resolutions that might help the surrounding area, so to speak. I know we've asked for a lot from Opus and their development, and at the same time, I do recognize sometimes the first players in town, they sometimes take a hit, and thereafter, and councils after, as development grows, they take a hit for a lot of people, so to speak. I recognize that, but at the same time, I think to Councilmember Arredondo, the consistency of what we ask for and what we try to ask for our developers, that needs to be respected at the same time. So I don't know if a continuance would be an advantage to have a better discussion, but I'll leave that out there for the council to decide.
All right. I first of all, I appreciate Core and what they're bringing to us. I mean, it's architecturally, it's a stunning building. No surprise in our meeting, I do have some challenges with the lot coverage size. It is not the same project that was before, that was presented to this council. It was over 3 different lots as one massive project. And I do understand the constraints that you have. And it is tough for me to move forward with this with the caveat that you have not, I would like to have, we shouldn't have to ask our developers or our partners in the community to reach out to those surrounding businesses, the Salvation Armies of the world. Obviously, Opus, I understand that just happened this week or hasn't been fully engaged unless you could tell me differently. And, Tempe takes pride in the partnerships that we have. And I was told earlier that you were not in, support of supporting the streetcar, but then tonight you are, so that is a good thing. I do appreciate that. But given the amount of units per dwelling units per acre, went from 214 to 697. That's a tough one. I do appreciate where you are, what you've designed. It is aesthetically pleasing. At the same time, though, just based on the sheer size and the lack of involvement and communication with the other surrounding properties is a concern for me regarding consistency.
Mr. Mayor, can I just address the communication situation? And I apologize if there may have been a miscommunication in terms of we didn't fully sit down with Opus, and I apologize to Larry. I sent Brad a note. I mean, we have communicated with them. We also have been doing this for a year. That is also seen by other Larry. I mean, I think we all know each other well enough. We've communicated with ASU. We've communicated with the Orpheum Lofts. We've talked to the Orpheum Lofts Homeowners Association. I've had, meetings with, at the same reason that the apartments, I mean, if you may remember, there were apartments that were on this lot. Those apartments are down because the neighbors asked us to take it down because there were people living in them. That was sitting there. The fire department asked us to take that down. I do want to defend, I spent a lot of time in this community, and we've reached out to people. I apologize if I did not personally sit down with Larry and neither did Chad, but, I mean, we did talk to them. They were noticed, and we have reached out to ASU and other members of the community. So I do want to just make that point. I mean, if you don't mind.
No, thank you. Councilor Spire.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm kind of, I got to say, I'm with Councilmember Keating. If not here, where in terms of density? This is steps away from our most central intersection at Millen University. And, I understand the concerns from the folks at Opus about changing standard and the comment about, folks are watching. And I do think that folks out there understand that councils change over time, not just because the minds of individuals change, although that does happen, but the membership changes. And the membership has changed since that project was approved. And so I think there are people on this council that want to make sure that we're maximizing the density in the place where density is appropriate. And if not here, where? And so, I understand some of the concerns in terms of setbacks. And I think that what you see here is that, there are some step backs as the building goes up. And I think that alleviates my concerns about the setbacks. I think aesthetically it's a great looking project. Hopefully the final result looks as good as these pictures do. So I'm very glad that you've committed to support the streetcar. That was a concern for me, as well as talking to Mr. Torres about apprenticeships. But generally I think a project on this space should be dense. And so I'm going to support it.
Okay, Councilman Granville.
One question for staff, then one question for Ms. Vaz. I know we typically, after 2 years, a PAD comes back as sort of eligible for expiration. Of course, the intention is to build, but sometimes things happen. In the event this PAD comes back eligible for expiration, does it roll back to what there is now, or does it roll back to zero?
Mayor, Councilmember Granville. So the PAD expiration process or reversion process has a time extension process that was just recently adopted that allows, if there's a temporary improvement, to be extended. If that expiration period expires, they would have to come back to the City Council for a decision by council. And so as a result of the direction by City Council, council can decide to send the original project back to the reversion to the original zoning designation, but as a result, removing the PAD from the property on the site.
That answers my question, but doesn't explain to me what I'm trying to get at. What I'm trying to figure out is, if this were to come back for reversion because they didn't make improvements, because nothing got built, one of the situations we sometimes get into is, would this revert to a 300-story entitlement, or would it revert to dirt?
Basically, revert to dirt, which the CC zoning district allows a maximum height of 50 feet.
Okay, that's the part I was trying to figure out.
Yeah,
Because
100%
sometimes
lot
we're
coverage,
stuck in the
50 foot
situation
height.
of not wanting to revert something because the thing that's there is better than the thing it would revert to, for example. We've had that with industrial and things like that. Okay, that helps me out, thank you. The other thing I would add, Ms. Vaz, is we've talked about this, and so this is a closer vote than I thought it would be, truthfully. The concern that I had is the same concern I expressed to you, and that is when you look at the transit center, when you look at the areas that are a quarter of a mile off of Mill Avenue, what we've seen at this point is a reluctance for people to walk to that retail. And so you see a lot of dead retail as you get away from Mill Avenue. Would you be amiable to a stipulation to work out with staff the ability, either through leasing through your neighbor or through building, a greater number of spaces for public consumption, whether that's for retail or people, that do a punch card when they go and buy a coffee, or they just get it for $5 an hour and walk down to Mill Avenue?
But greater than the 9 and the 18 that we have? I mean, so we now have, so since we last talked to you, we have additional spaces, right?
So you did have.
When we, Mr. Mayor,
Explain, maybe I didn't understand.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, Councilman Granville, when we had a conversation, we were just using the 9 adjacent on-site spaces as open for retail.
Okay.
And through Ryan's stipulation that we just talked about, we now have 9 inside and then 9 outside. So there's 18 spaces kind of.
For roughly how many square feet of retail are you thinking?
6,000 square feet.
So 18 parking spaces for about 16.
Oh, 6,000.
6,000 square
Yeah.
feet. All right, that's fine then. I'll support the project. I just want to mention, where are the people for Opus? Are they still here? The thing I would say for the guys from Opus is this isn't the end of it. I agree with Councilmember Shapira. If not here, where? And the same thing that Councilmember Keating said. Every tall building we build here is a tall building we don't build at Warner and Rural, or where McClintock and Elliott, or whatever the case may be. Yeah, where Landis is.
Good luck with that.
Well, that dirt lot's for apartments. That's what it's zoned for. And so I think if we're not going to build height here, I don't know where we build height. And I think it's also fair to say that the next building next to them is going to look at their building and say, all right, we're going to add 50 feet to that. So this is not the end of the line. This is probably just one step in a continuation of progressively longer, taller buildings in this area, which I know is not great for you all because you were a different conversation at a different time. But as Councilmember Shapiro said, councils change and opinions evolve, I guess.
All right, there's been a motion. You want to, and there's been a second. You want to restate the motion, just for the record? I just restate the motion like how you want it to be.
You could withdraw your motion and I move we approve the item. With the streetcar, I just asked that and it was not clear the answer. I move we approve this item with the condition that they support the streetcar.
And my staff might change the staff condition.
Staff condition on parking.
Condition as well. Every stipulation that we so far discussed that you've agreed to.
This goes, question.
Councilman Navarro.
If this goes down, can it go to we basically can't go to a continuance on it. Once it's voted down, it's voted down. Am I correct on that? With the stipulation or not?
No, I mean, I think once we vote on it, it's over. It's a
Yeah,
second hearing.
once you vote on it, it's over.
But I do have a question about the streetcar. Would it be helpful to clarify the specifics of the support of the streetcar?
If you think so, Vice Mayor, I have no problem with that.
Yeah, I don't know.
She said she would agree to it.
I haven't seen it.
There's a formula.
Mr. Mayor, we agree to the draft that
I think
staff
it's
is given
as
us.
presented from the city, right?
Yes, Alex gave me the draft of the document.
Mayor, I want a continuance, but I don't know how to go about it now.
There's been a motion in a second.
So I can't vote for this.
Unless you pull what David says. Go down there, you can do that. All right, there's been a motion in a second. Please vote. That motion passes 4-3.
Thank you.
Next is item 6C4, so hold a second and final public hearing to adopt an ordinance for a zoning map amendment, planned area development, and plan review for a new 7-story mixed-use development consisting of 391 dwelling units and commercial uses for mixed-use development at Apache and Terrace located 1100 East Apache Boulevard. The applicant is Snell and Wilmer. This is a public hearing item. Would the applicant like to make a statement? Mr. Wood?
I have nothing, Mayor.
Did
you charge your
It's
client?
okay.
Did you charge your client for all this time you've been sitting in the audience?
You can't say
Come on,
that.
no.
No.
Knock him over
Don't
so
even
he
listen.
wakes up a little bit.
All right, is there any comments or statement, or this is a public hearing item. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to address us on item 6C4? Seeing none, I close that portion. Is there a motion on item 6C4?
So moved.
Moved by Vice Mayor O'Donnell Savage, seconded by Councilmember Cubey. Please vote. That motion passes 7-0. Next is item 6C5, is to hold a second and final public hearing to adopt an ordinance approving the conveyance of certain city-owned land located at 649 West 19th Street to Habitat for Humanity, Central Arizona, authorizing the mayor as designee to execute a development and disposition agreement, one or more deeds and other related documents necessary to effect such conveyance and other transaction. This is a public hearing item. Is the applicant here?
Not really.
What you did is about the smoothest thing I have ever seen.
Is there any, this is a public hearing item. I know, Councilman Cubey, would you like to make a statement on this?
Sure, yes, and Deborah Bradley, who's representing Habitat for Humanity, couldn't stay, but I just want to take note of this agenda item as well as the next three that encompasses 2020 homes built with Habitat for Humanity, affordable homes, and that is a very exciting development in Tempe and something we should take note of. And I'll be supporting all 4 of the agenda items, but wanted to thank Habitat for Humanity for their partnerships with the city in the past and present and future. Thank you.
Okay, and I want to second the comments by Councilmember Cubey. This is something that's really unique, and the partnership that we have with Habitat Humanity is really something that we as a city should be proud of. With that, I look for a motion on item 65. Moved by Councilmember Cubey. Is there a second? Seconded by Vice Mayor O'Donnell Savage. Please vote.
Aye.
Councilman Navarro is participating by phone.
Aye.
Councilman Navarro is participating via phone. The motion.
I said aye.
The motion was Councilmember Cubey. The second, Vice Mayor Hernando, and the motion passes. Councilman Shapiro. 7-0. Next item is item 6C6. To hold a second and final public hearing to adopt an ordinance approving the conveyance of certain city-owned land located at 1969 East Don Carlos Avenue to Habitat Humanity, Central Arizona, authorizing the mayor as designee to execute a development disposition agreement, one or more deeds and the related documents necessary to effect such conveyance and transactions. This is a public hearing item. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to address item 6C6? Could you please get my attention? If there isn't, I look for a motion. Moved by Councilmember Cubey, seconded by Councilmember Keating. Please vote.
Aye.
Thank you. That motion carries 7-0. Next is item 6C7. It's to hold a second and final public hearing adopted ordinance approving the conveyance of certain city-owned land located at 3606 South Roosevelt Street to Habitat for Humanity, Central Arizona, authorizing the mayor as designee to execute a development disposition agreement, one or more deeds and other related documents necessary to effect such conveyance and other transactions. This is a public hearing item. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to address item 6C7? Could you give my attention? If not, I look for a motion from my colleagues.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Keating. Is there a second? Seconded by Vice Mayor Hernando Savage. Please vote. Councilman Navarro.
Aye.
That motion passes 7-0. Next is item 6C8. It's hold a second and final public hearing to adopt an ordinance approving the conveyance of certain city-owned land located at 2539 East Victory Drive to Habitat Humanity, Central Arizona, authorizing the mayor designee to execute a development disposition agreement, one or more deeds, and other related documents necessary to effect such conveyance and other transaction. This is a public hearing item. Is there any comments from the public? Could you please get my attention now? Otherwise, look for a motion on item 68. Moved by Councilmember Cubey, seconded by Vice Mayor Hernando Savage. Please vote.
Aye.
That motion passes 7-0 with Councilmember Shapiro and Navarro voicing yes on the phone. The voice of God. Okay. Next is our current events and council announcements. Mr. Keating.
You know, I had one, but I've forgotten it, so nothing from me, Mayor.
Councilmember Cubey.
Yes, have the Bonnie Richardson.
Could you put your microphone on, please?
Sorry.
Thank you.
In this not very high resolution image, we have Bonnie Richardson, who's a principal planner and architect and longtime Tempe employee. And just on Arbor Day, 2018, our Arbor Day celebration, she received the Arizona Department of Forestry and Fire Management's award, Ironwood Award for Public Service. And it's a very prestigious honor presented to an exemplary government employee who, through extraordinary efforts, has significantly and positively contributed to and enhanced urban forest management. So they're acknowledging Bonnie's work with our urban forestry master plan and all the public engagement efforts that went into that, and the sweat labor that went into her bringing forward the urban forestry master plan. I just want to salute Bonnie Richardson, and so proud that the Arizona Department of Forestry and Fire Management have awarded her this prestigious honor. Thank you.
Vice Mayor.
You know what, Mayor? I got nothing but just a little bit of a headache, so I'm gonna let this one go.
Councilmember Granville.
I'm going to second Vice Mayor Arredondo Savage's comment and say have a great night.
Councilman Navarro.
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Councilman Shapiro.
None, Mayor.
All right. I just want to make a comment. We lost, the city of Tempe lost a beloved volunteer and community member in Matt Corbeck. My thoughts and prayers are with Karen and Matt's family. Matt has been involved with the Neighborhood Advisory Commission, and Karen's involved with Friends of the Library, as well as what's the Experience Corps? God, I'm sorry, it's late. Experience Corps, and they're tremendous, assets to our community. And my thoughts and prayers are with the Corbeck family. And I also want to give a kudos to. I attended last Saturday the Music in the Park at Estrada with Blaine Long, and it was sponsored by some realtors that live in the neighborhood of Estrada, La Estancia. And I got to tell you, it was really exciting to see all the residents out in the park and enjoying. Obviously, the weather was perfect. It's really great to see. And also, on a personal note, I can't believe I'm saying this, but it's hard to believe that my oldest daughter is graduating high school next Thursday from Corona, and it's really, I want to wish all the family members of the residents of Tempe for the children that are graduating next week from Tempe Union High School District and all the high schools. So I wish all the graduates much success, and don't forget to come back home after your college experience or any other experiences you may have. Tempe's always going to be your forever home. With that, I now turn to public appearances. According to the Arizona Open Meeting Law, the City of Tempe Council may only discuss matters listed on this agenda. Wait, before I do that, I also got to recognize my youngest daughter's birthday is Sunday. And she's turned 16, so watch out, because she will be driving. And happy birthday, Sophia. And yeah, the chief is already making sure she's got eyes on her. So thank you. All right, with that, I'm sorry. We're now on the public appearances. According to Arizona Open Meeting Law, the City Council may only discuss matters listed on this agenda. Matters discussed by the public during public appearances cannot be discussed by the city unless they are specifically listed on this agenda. There's a 3-minute time limit per speaker. Per speaker's visual aids and recorded tapes are not allowed. Members of the public shall refrain from making any personal, impertinent, or slanderous remarks while attending this meeting. Unauthorized remarks from the audience, clapping, stomping of feet, yelling, or any other similar demonstrations will be subjected to removal of the council chambers. With that, under scheduled public appearances, we have a couple. Mr. Bob Dean, president of the ATU, Local 1433, First Transit Bus Drivers.
Mayor Mitchell, City Council, My name is Bob Bean. I'm president of ATU 1433. We cover the whole valley as far out as Yuma with all transit operators. I was here 2 weeks ago, and we brought up a few issues. One of the main issues was the paper towel and toilet seat covers in the operator's restroom at your green Tempe bus facility, which at the time was state of the art. As of today, there is still no paper towel holders in the operator's washroom. There's still no toilet seat covers in the operator's washroom. Right out here in the public washroom, right outside the count chamber doors, there's paper towels and there's toilet seat covers. But it's not good enough for the operators that operate the transit system here in the city of Tempe. Yet the general manager's washroom area has all of the above. The dispatchers can walk into a washroom right off the side of the dispatch office. They've got paper towels and toilet seat covers. Go to the maintenance department. They've all got toilet seat covers and paper towels. The operators have none. They've got to use the air dryers, which have been proven to spread germs farther and faster than anything else. And 2 weeks ago, they didn't have them. They still don't have them today. 2 weeks from now, I'll be back here telling you again that they still don't have them. This company does not care about the operators. They blame the operators for everything. And it's not right. These operators shouldn't have to suffer without toilet seat covers and being able to wash their hands and wipe them off with paper towels. And it's been an ongoing issue. And the RPTA, who contracts out to them, seems to think that this is the right way to do it. Ray Abraham, I don't know, maybe he should go sit in that washroom for 5 or 10 minutes a day and then try and get out of there feeling clean, because he wouldn't like it. Another issue that I brought up was the mechanic's best tool for the Tempe buses, and that's duct tape. We got a grievance response 2 days ago from the company because we had put a grievance in over duct tape being used. The grievance response was, oh, we'll use duct tape basically to keep the bus on the road in emergency situations. I don't know any federal Motor Carrier Act that has duct tape listed as a way to keep buses on the road that are carrying your kids, your families, my grandparents, and they're being held together with duct tape because the company says that they can do it.
Mr. Bean, your time is up.
I see that.
Thank you. Next, we have Dwayne Sessions from the Financial Secretary of the ATU Local 1433.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is Dwayne Session. I'm the Financial Secretary for Amalgamated Transit Union Local 1433. I'm also a bus driver that has worked here in Tempe for almost 19 years. And like I said 2 weeks ago, I remember when it was Tempe in Motion, TIM. Everything was nice back then. Like I said, I've been here almost 19 years. I have operators calling me that can't get in touch with management down there while they're on the road. Had an operator call me 3 nights ago telling me that she was touched inappropriately on the bus while loading a wheelchair. So I got all the information and I forwarded it over to the company. The company tells her that they can't send a road supervisor or anything to her, but they can give her the non-emergency number to contact Scottsdale Police Department. We have operators getting assaulted. We have operators getting spit on, operators getting stuff thrown on them. And when they go to contact VMS, they can't get no help from First Transit. And like I said, it's unbearable when you're working for a company that don't care nothing about their workers. All they care about is the wheels moving on the bus so they can get their money for miles. Fare boxes don't work. They tell the driver, keep going. They won't change out buses. You're putting duct tape on horns. You're putting duct tape on mirrors. It's, the stuff is deplorable. The working conditions are horrible for the operators, and they're quick to write up an operator because someone makes a complaint because the bus is late. Buses are pulling out of the yard 20, 25 minutes late, and they're telling them to go discharge only and not pick up people. Well, when that bus comes back around, those people that were waiting there jump all over the drivers. Company don't care about that. I get calls from Tempe and the Mesa facility, maybe 60, 70 calls a day from what goes on. I would like the council to look into this and the mayor to look into this because, Tempe bus service used to be the #1 bus service in the valley. Now it's not. Thank you.
Thank you. Under unscheduled public appearances, I have a couple cards. Mr. Mario Martinez. Okay. LaWanda Davis. Please state your name and place of residence for the record. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. My name is LaWanda Davis. I currently live in Mesa. I am a full-time bus operator with First Transit. In fact, I am the young lady who was touched inappropriately on Friday. I'm the young lady that was written up because the anxiety level from the situation was so high that I did not sleep and could not report to work Saturday morning. My job is very important to me. I like what I do. The buses was a career change and a good fit for me. What's not a good fit for me is to call my dispatcher when in trouble or when trouble presents itself and there's no help. At the end of the day, if I'm not safe, no one on my bus is safe. And that's just, it wasn't a very good experience. Hopefully we can get something done about it. I want to be able to go home to my family the way I bring your buses back to the yard. The same way I take them out, no incidents, no accidents, no dings, no flat tires, in good condition. And I want to be able to go home at the end of my day to my family in good condition. Friday night was not good condition for me. It was not good condition for my family. It wasn't even a good condition for anybody on the bus because I got here and went out of service. So hopefully we can get something done about it to keep us protected because at the end of the day, we deal with pedestrians, bikers, other motorists. We transport a variety of people from all walks of life. And again, if operators aren't safe, then any and everything around us isn't safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, James Washington.
Good late evening, very late evening, council, mayor. My name is James Washington. I've been a bus driver 25 years. I've been driving in this beautiful city of Tempe for 19 years. I am an Orbit coach operator. The Orbit coaches have problems with the AC for years. Last year, the passengers had to ask for the city to step in to get water. And it looks like this year they're going to have to do the same thing. When the AC doesn't work on the coaches, you can hear over the dispatch radio, tell the customer to catch the next coach if he doesn't feel comfortable. You can hear them tell the operator when they call in that the customer is saying it's too hot. Dispatcher's response is the operator all right? That's not the right answer to give when you have city coaches that are out there that are hot in the summertime. We have wheelchairs. Whenever the wheelchair ramp doesn't work on the coach, the dispatcher's response is, tell them to wait for the next bus. It'll be there in 15 minutes. Whenever a coach is down or if they miss miles, they tell the operator to go drop off only. What if my mother, your kids, any of your family members are waiting down there? Just this evening, they had a lady that said, where's the coach? I had to call in for work. This is like the second or third time I've had to do this. Well, there's issues. The lady says, what issues? Call 602-253-5000. They'll be able to tell you what the issues are. No apologies, no I'm sorry, no explanation. This is the contractors that are running this city here. They're inhumane to the customers and are inhumane to the operators. So I plead with you, for one, to start with the Orbit coaches. This summer you're going to get a lot of calls because they haven't fixed that, and that's been a constant problem. And for two, we need to start with treating us humane. We deserve, it sounds silly, but paper covers over for the toilet. We shouldn't have to come to the city council to fix something simple as that. That's, I don't know. That's just unprofessional. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Washington.
Have a good night.
All right, next is Maria Gasca. Oh, dude. You got 2 more meetings. I got 3 more, and then we gotta go call to the audience.
Good night.
Hi.
Sorry, I
It's
cannot
late.
fall asleep.
Yeah.
Okay, my name is Maria Gasca, and I'm just here to update a little bit about our situation on the mobile home park. Well, we haven't been in a good situation because we're still not able to take any mobile home out of the park. We only got 2 more months left. And thank you, Ms. Scooby, because we received your email and then we find out about this person that is acting behind us, like telling that we were ready to move by the 27th, which is not true. Not everybody was aware about these people who make them sign this petition that to come and tell you guys that we were ready to move by the 27th of July. So just letting you know, so we've been having problems. People who were ready to move out, it's just been in the situation that the money that we have offered, the $7,500, the movers are telling there's not enough money to cover the move. We had to pay another, they offer the 7,500, and most of the movers are charging up to $15,000. So people who were ready to move out is still stuck because they cannot afford to put the other half of the money to be, like I said, I mean, we still need more time. It's still stuck because, like I said, none of the mobile homes, not even the ones they were ready, the people who say they were ready, that they found a place to move the mobile homes, they haven't been able to do it. And we only had 2 months left. I mean, we're trying to convince Tree House that we need more time, but they say they already do whatever they had to offer us. But we still need more. That's what most of the people need, more time. Couple of the people are selling their property, but even they sell it, this stuff is still, the mobile homes and everything is still there. Like, we don't know if that's true or not, or there's just the time because they haven't been able to take it out. So thank you so much for letting us know that these other people come and tell you that, but for reals, nobody's still ready. I mean, they still working out things in there. Thank you so much and have a good night.
Thank you, Maria. Next is Dr. Sylvia Herrera.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. I'm here once again to talk about the Tempe Mobile Home Park, as was mentioned by Ms. Gasco. Tempe Mobile Home, located at 2015 East University, is another continuation of the displacement of residents living right now in affordable housing. Mobile home parks are being targeted, and here in Tempe, we have the list of the properties that were trailer home parks: 1847 East Apache Boulevard, 1912 East Apache Boulevard, 2059 East Apache Boulevard, 2001 East Apache Boulevard. Tree House has a property on East Apache, 1707 East Apache. That was on a list of properties that were offered to the residents of the Tempe Mobile Home. But again, it's on Apache, and they're afraid that if they go there, they're also going to be displaced. We have some residents at Tempe that were living in Pony Acres that went to Tempe Mobile Home, and now they're having to relocate again. So this is a problem. We need to look at ways that the city can become involved in the situation of Tempe Mobile Homes. We've sat here this evening listening to the projects where there's high density projects that are being proposed, but these high density projects are for higher income residents. The trailer parks right now are high density properties, but they're for low income residents. We need affordable housing in Tempe. There's Treehouse submitted the change of use for the state of Arizona. However, to our knowledge, the property has not been sold. There was a quick claim deed that added a second party to the LLC. We have no information that the property owners have submitted anything to the city, and so for redevelopment. So we're asking that the residents give that, have that extension of time to find affordable housing. And we know that that's not available here in Tempe. The light rail was a major issue with those properties that I mentioned, and a lot of them still have not been, those projects are still pending. So the residents were displaced, but those projects have not moved forward. So there's a lot of speculation that's going on in regard to trailer park properties. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Next is Cindy Flores.
Good evening. Again, my name is Cindy Flores. I'm a resident from the Tempe Mobile Home Park, and like my mom just said, she was the first one to talk. What we really, really want is more time. Like she said, a lot of us can't move because of mover issues where they're charging us a lot more than what their state is giving to us. Another concern right now that we have is security issues. We have about 3 or 4 light poles between all the mobile home park, and out of all of them, we've only had one working. That's right in the center by the laundromat. And recently, the light has stopped working, and we have talked to Treehouse to come fix it, and they have not come fixed it. They're in a way saying like they're not going to come fix it. We don't know. But it's been a couple of days. It's been about probably a little over a week now that light hasn't been working. And like we said, a lot of them that were ready to move can't move, but there's like apartments there as well. And some of those apartment owners have already left because they found a different place to live. And so because there's no light, we're fearing the security of the area, because there have been some neighbors that say their dogs are barking at 2 in the morning because somebody is digging through the abandoned houses looking for things. So a lot of them have small children, and they have pets, and they have like their things outside, like a grill or something, like we do. We have our grill outside. And so a lot of us are fearing for the security because those lights aren't on, and it's a very dark area, especially because our street lights down Smith, they're very spaced out as well. So we don't have that much light around us. And so that's another big concern that we have right now, is that we don't have much light other than what people have outside their houses. So people are starting to leave their light on all night. So not only does that affect like their electricity bill, but they're doing it because of no light in the whole mobile home park. So that's just another concern that we have with Treehouse as well, that even though I know we only have a couple months left, they're still not coming to help us with things that, like maintenance that they should be taking care of. But other than that, thank you for everything that you guys have done to help us, and hope you guys have a good night. Thank you.
You too. That's all the cards I have. Is there anyone else in the audience wishing to address us? Yes. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Salvador Reza. I wasn't gonna speak at all, but one of the things that is happening is that we sent a letter to Treehouse basically asking for an extension, and they wrote back, we're citing state ordinance and stuff like this, state laws. But they wrote back a very legalistic letter and basically accusing us of giving legal advice, like in a threatening manner. So they got very legal now. They got, they're gonna play hardball against poor communities like this. Instead of making the right thing and extending it 3 months, that's all they're asking. Because on the first place, I don't know, there's a big racket out there where the movers, they're not going by the state standards of $7,100. They're going to $11,000, $12,000, $13,000 to people that cannot afford it. So at the end of the thing, we were able to talk to some attorneys, which they're going to try to talk to them in a nice way to see if they would be willing to extend it. But the bottom line of all of this is that on the one hand, the developments for Tempe are, they look pretty. They're like beautiful developments. But what happens to the community that have been here for a long time? What happens to them? I mean, by July 20 something, if they're not gone, they're gonna come and basically evict them and throw them out into the street. And all they're gonna get out of there is $1,800 if they submit the titles, which in fact, those titles. In that letter, they denied that they were holding liens against those properties. When Lauren was there, and showed the liens that, where the properties had not been, the liens had not been released. So they're even denying that. In other words, they're lying, they're right out lying, and they're threatening with legal actions against communities that all they want to do is be able to survive and move in a decent way with dignity. That's all it is. And to us, that's unacceptable. And if they think we're going to go away lightly, we're not. We're going to fight until the last minute, and they better get ready for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Essa. If Levon and Naomi, if you could follow up with the individuals that spoke tonight with Treehouse regarding the maintenance, the light, and then also whatever we could do to make sure that the movers are following laws and so forth, that we can assist with that as well, making sure that they're being respectful and not doing what's been stated. Yeah, I will. I mean, and also if you can, it doesn't hurt to ask about an extension. I mean, I know I've met, obviously, doesn't hurt to ask. All right, is there anyone else in the audience wishing to address us under unscheduled public appearances? Seeing none, I close that portion. We are adjourned. However, we have 2 more meetings. If we can we take a
Grabbing tacos, checking out hotties. Now we're talking astrology, getting our nails did all Japanesey. Day drinking at the Wildcat, sucking real bad at Mariah.
All right, it's late. We're going to get started. Go ahead. Is it ready? All right, we're going to go ahead and reconvene. We're going to call the Rio Salado Community Facilities District Board meeting to order, a special meeting for May 17, 2018. We have the quorum. Robin's there. David, are you on the phone still? Joel?
I'm on, yep.
All right. Joel, you still there? Yeah. We have Councilmember Shapiro on the phone. All right. First item is approve the Rio Salado Community Facilities District Board special meeting minutes, May 25th, 2017, and June 8th, 2017. Is there a motion to approve the minutes for May 25th and June 8th? Looking for a motion to approve the minutes. Moved by Councilmember Keating, seconded by Vice Mayor Arredondo Savage. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Are those opposed? That motion passes 6-0 with Councilmember Navarro absent. Second item on the agenda is to hold a public hearing to adopt a resolution levying an annual assessment for the Rio Salado Community Facilities District improvement project number 1, consisting of the acquisition and construction of annual maintenance of certain improvements within the district, approving the tentative budget of the district to the fiscal year 18-19, and setting a date for and ordering the giving of notice of all public hearings to receive objections on the assessments and tentative budget. Public hearing is scheduled for June 7, 2018. This is a public hearing item. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak on item 2 on the Rio Salado Community Facilities District Board meeting? Bueller? No, sorry. All right, there is seeing none. Is there any comments or discussion or a motion? I need a motion to adopt resolution number CFD R 2018.01. It's been moved by Councilmember Cubey, seconded by Vice Mayor Arredondo Savage. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That motion passes 6-0 with Councilmember Navarro absent. With that, we will adjourn the meeting. On to the next one. I'd like to go ahead and call the special meeting to order for the Tempe City Council for May 17, 2018. We are here to hold a hearing on our budget. The first item is to hold a public hearing to adopt a resolution adopting the fiscal year 18-19 tentative budget and setting public hearings for June 7, 2018 for the following: adopting the fiscal years 18-19 through 2023 capital improvement program, holding a truth and taxation hearing, and approving the fiscal year 18-19 property tax levy, and adopting the fiscal year 18-19 final budget. Also setting a second public hearing for the final adoption of the property tax levy at a meeting scheduled for June 28, 2018. Is this a public hearing item? First, I guess we're going to have our Deputy City Manager, Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mayor, council members.
Brief presentation, brief.
Ken Jones, Deputy City Manager. So in your approval of the tentative budget tonight, you had mentioned a few things that you wanted to bring up during this point at the budget process. In your packet, we gave you the 6 items that were changed since you last saw the budget, but we also mentioned the 3 items that you wanted us to bring up to you during this tentative budget process. And that was, the first one was potential financial strategies for housing attainability. You wanted to discuss how that might fit into your budget process this year. I don't know if you still want to discuss that.
Vice Mayor?
Well, I think we realize that we definitely need to find a funding stream to be able to increase workforce housing, affordable housing, and we know we need to do that. But I think in lieu of the fact that, the budget's pretty well set, I think we can certainly respect that, but would hope that we can entertain the discussion and put it in the budget for future years. Because I think it's just going to be really important that we work and grow and do what we can to put in the affordable housing that needs to happen in the city.
And with that, I just want to point out, this council has really taken action on this, because we did vote to approve the Insight billboard to increase our annual charitable payments, I believe, of $35,000. And that, I think we asked that to be dedicated to the Coalition of Affordable Housing. And it's our new nonprofit that for our community land trust. So we did add that on. The council gave direction on that, and I think we're also. Yeah, we also had on the agenda tonight the Habitat for Humanity homes. So we know this is an issue, and we're taking this seriously. And I want to thank the council for working on this. Anyone else have any comments on that? Okay. Yep.
Two more items, Mayor. The second one that you had brought up that you wanted to discuss further was the recommendations from the Tempe Community Council on agency review funding. You said you wanted to mention that during the budget process. This is kind of your last bite at that apple.
Okay. Councilman Curie.
Yeah, I had brought up that issue because I feel that you look at the emergency rental assistance funds, that it should not be an agency review item as its baseline sort of safety net funding. It's not a program so much as just funding for emergency rental assistance. It doesn't get analyzed, it gets dispersed, and it's woefully inadequate, and we only supply one out of every 10 needs that come through. So, you know, I don't know what stage, when are we formally approving the budget?
Tonight is the tentative adoption of the budget.
But the final.
During the final adoption of the budget, you cannot increase the budget. You can make changes to the budget at that point, but you can't increase the budget. So tonight you will set the maximum that the budget will be.
So we have, we have any council members on the phone?
Councilor Spire.
David, are you on?
I'm here, yeah.
So, I mean, it's 10:15 at night and people are exhausted, and this is something we forwarded to this late night hour, but I feel like it's an important issue that we need to.
And I appreciate that. And I said this again, I want to say it now. I mean, we have a process in place that has been happening for 32 years with our agency review. And the whole point of this agency review is we have a dedicated group of citizens. I know I've served on agency review. I know Councilmember Cubie has, and Vice Mayor Arenado and I think Granville and some others. And I got to be honest with you, the whole point of that was to take the politics out. And I feel like this is an end around, and although I respect all the human service agencies, and I truly do, and I respect them, but I also respect the over 50 volunteers that donated hours and hours and countless hours, and some are in the audience still here because of this issue. It's important, and in making sure with the agency review, making sure that we have the human community touched to this whole process, because our community members have made recommendations outside of a political vacuum, if you will, just because of some things that are happening. I got to be honest with you. This really is we got to respect the process that we've had, that's had in place. And just because someone comes and lobbies about certain things that we need more, there's always going to be a need for additional human service dollars. And I got to be honest with you, for all the other nonprofit agencies that go through agency review and to add money outside of that process, I think disrespects the process. And I'm not saying that it's not important. And I know we have added, I know the Salvation Army has done rental assistance on top of what we're doing. I know the TCAA has it. I know the city has additional funds that we've done certain things with. And I know we have some staff members that can speak to that. But I really have a hard time going out of the process, especially now. If this is a priority, I'd recommend that this come back forward prior, and when the Tempe Community Action, I understand that, but there's only we have limited dollars, and it's not like we're not providing resources to individuals for this need. And I'll be honest with you, the TCA requests, my understanding is 74% of all the requests that TCA requested for have been funded, 74%. And if you compare that to some of the other, there's supplemental requests that we have through the city, 52% have not received funding for supplemental requests, from my understanding. So there's a lot that goes into it in the process that we have. And to kind of go outside of that, I just, doesn't mean I don't think it's important, because it is. I mean, we all deeply care because what we do for human services, and we respect all the agencies. But to really go outside of this process that we've had really it goes against all the the volunteers that have really dug in and understand the process of what and how they scored these programs. That's the only thing I have to say about that.
May I respond?
Yes,
Yeah.
you can.
So you speak with great passion about the process, and I very much respect it, and I participated in it for many years. And we know last year during agency review, we looked at, we weren't going outside the process. We saw great need, and we saw that TCC agency review citizens identify that need, and we decided to fund more of that need because they were the ones faced with the tough decision to sort of cut back where they want to fund more. In this case, this program, in the CAP program, the emergency rental assistance was very highly rated, just fell a little bit below the level, was it B to C? I forget exactly, I don't have it in front of me, which meant a gigantic cut, whereas if it had been a point, it might have been the difference between, one reviewer giving a lower score than another, and that meant a $22 or something thousand cut. You guys could remind me maybe the exact number. So, this isn't picking winners and losers. This isn't disrupting the process. This isn't anybody lobbying. I have a lobby for the residents because I, like all of you, talk to residents, observe the crisis we have with affordable housing. We know that from our community survey, the overriding issue was the lack of affordable housing. And I argued this year and I argued last year, nobody lobbied me, but it was my own formed opinion that emergency rental assistance should not be a program that is reviewed every year. It's baseline funding to supply emergency rental assistance and keep people out of homelessness. Like, we want to keep people out of homelessness rather than have the difficult assignment of bringing them back into secure, safe housing after they've become homeless. So I'm not at all advocating to go outside the process. In fact, that there are folks here, and I don't necessarily want to bring them into it, who represent TCC, who would very much probably like to see increased funding. Last year we decided to do that. I'm not proposing a $250,000 increase like we proposed last year and was successful in obtaining last year. I'm just, I see we have inadequate funds for emergency rental assistance, and we're going against cross purposes to put money into homelessness programs and then underfund emergency rental assistance and have more people go into homelessness. And I'm asking us to address this.
Vice Mayor?
Mr. Jones, I got a question for you really quick. And can you remind me, I know it's brought up both by the mayor and by Councilmember Kuby in regards to the additional money that we've spent for rental assistance. And I thought we had given out two increases to address that issue. Can you remind us what that amount was and where they went?
I believe that's correct in last year's budget process. I don't have those numbers in front of me, but I remember that this conversation took place at the city council last year to increase that amount, and we did. And as the city council requested, I think as Councilmember Kuby has pointed out, that there was a request to increase that amount. What I have in front of me is the total numbers that we give to Tempe Community Council, and it's increased. We increased it to $1 million. We took a further step, and some of the money that they couldn't spend last year because of the problem they had with tumbleweed, we just carried that forward to next year, so to bring the total to $1.24 million for total funding for TCC. I don't have the exact numbers for emergency shelter.
Naomi's right behind you.
You have it?
So last year you also allocated $75,000 additional to rental assistance, and that came into the Human Services Department. So we were allocating those monies out to families that were in need. So
For rental assistance?
For rental assistance.
From my understanding, we've only spent $25,000 of that, so there's $50,000 that's outstanding that has not been apportioned.
So to date, there's $38,000 in there right now to date, because since this last month we spent an additional $10,000, so there's about $38,000 left, and so we anticipate that we'll probably spend those funds by end of June.
So TCCA ran out of their rental assistance funds in March.
But we can
the way we modeled the program was that we let the agencies know that we had the additional $75,000. We talked to TCAA, Salvation Army, the churches, St. Vincent de Paul's, and let them know that we were able to have additional money to fund rental assistance, and then they referred their clients and participants and families over to us, and then we vetted that out and we took them through the process, and then we were able to provide rental assistance to them.
I mean, can you remind me when you actually received that $75,000
So we
allocation? 'Cause
received
it wasn't, go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, we received the 75,000 at the beginning of the fiscal year, but what we did was we waited till January to put the program in place so that we could fill any gap of funding that was not there.
Right.
That the other agencies no longer had available.
Perfect, okay, good. Well, I mean, I think that's really helpful, I think, in just putting things in church perspective, because I don't disagree. I think it's really important that we try to keep people in their homes. Because I think once something happens and they're out of their homes, I think the dollars and the resources that are spent to help them get back into a home, into a better situation, you know, is a longer process, is a more expensive process, and it's wearing and tearing on everybody within that process. And so I would say this, I think even if my thought process is, I can't say that rental assistance housing would be at the top of my list if I wanted to give them more money, because I can't really put into context with everything else that is going on and all the other needs. And I 100% respect the agency review processes and those individuals that take the time to do that. I think, I mean, I have to say it because Councilmember Granville said, if we didn't really respect that process with agency review and take the politics out of it, like the mayor mentioned, I feel like we're going to be like we were just down there a few hours
Innovation
ago.
funds.
And I don't want to be there. And that's why it's so important to protect the integrity of that process. And I think work at a bigger solution. You know me, I like to look at a comprehensive type of a plan and see how that fits in instead of just throwing money at it. Sure. I realize that there's people that need it. And we want to try to help as many people as we can. I'm glad to hear that there's still money available so people can use. And I think it's something that we definitely need to keep our eyes on. But I'm not really ready to allocate more dollars right now at this time. But I think it's something that we definitely need to keep a pulse on, because it's really, really important to making sure that we're helping as many people as we possibly can. Because I think keeping them in their homes, it should be one of our biggest goals for sure. Now, if it were up to me and wanting to allocate more money, I would 100% say, then let's talk about putting more money into the pipeline so we can create affordable housing and we can create more workforce housing. I think that's just as important. So right now, that's, you know, pretty much how I feel about that, Mayor. So thank you, Naomi. Thank
Yeah,
you,
we
Mr.
would
Jones.
agree with that too, and we're always looking also for grant opportunities to bring more flexible funding in so that we can use that toward rental assistance as well.
So with that being said, what are we doing to communicate that if people need rental assistance, have those agencies come refer them to us so we can help those individuals? So if we have the money that's already there, that's what the communication aspect, I think that's probably what needs to happen. I'm sure it is, but if it hasn't, let's make sure it happens. To let all, like you mentioned earlier, let all those different agencies, from iHelp to the churches to Salvation Army to St. Vincent de Paul to TCAA, just have them refer their customers to the city so that we can assist them, because I know that's one of the concerns.
And we did work with Nikki's Ripley's group, and we'll continue to do that as well.
And I would say though too, and I'm not going to nitpick, and I respect the process. I mean, one of the things I was so disappointed in the process was to see that we got rid of all of our school counselors. That program, I mean, it really struck a chord with me, and I was so disappointed to see that. And we talk about all the things that we're doing in regards to keep people in their homes, and we should be talking about everything that we're doing to prevent these kids, you know, from making bad choices or going down bad pathways. And that's why those counselors were so important, and to see them fall below the line, to me was just really sad, but I respect the process. And I know that was probably a hard call for a lot of people.
It was a very hard call, and I think you kind of lived through a similar process with the innovation grants tonight, when you're having to rate and then make some of those decisions, and so it's very difficult.
Councilman
So I contend, and I contended last year, and we added more money to emergency rental assistance, but I contend there's a dysfunction in the process, and that we have our main human service arm, TCAA, has to go for funding for emergency rental assistance, a baseline social service program every year, and it's not in the same category as the other programs and projects that get evaluated from sort of our outside agencies that we work with. And I think we need to remove that aspect of it from agency review and treat it as a separate line item.
So you're basically, let me ask you
We
this.
decided 2 years ago on a whim, and it was very.
But that's a policy, that's
that's
a total policy process. If we've been there and
I'm not
we've
saying
done
this
that.
year, it's not possible this year, I understand that, but I think for the next year, the next process, we need to reconsider including emergency rental assistance that we provide TCAA, the CAP, into our agency review and analyze it as a program worthy of funding. It's baseline human service
So let me
funding.
ask you a question, and I guess, I don't know the answer to this, is what's the difference between giving TCA the money versus giving our own Human Services Department the money to do the same thing?
It's a good question. I'm not sure how, I mean, I've asked to get a list of every single dollar spent on emergency rental assistance and all the different partners that we work with.
But the point is that the money's there. What's the difference between certain agencies referring their customers to us for rental assistance if we have the money there?
We have, but I think there's been, you know, there's some money that's been unspent, and it doesn't mean there's not unmet need. It just hasn't connected. We've had this in the past where we haven't necessarily dispersed the funds that we have to the right people.
But Naomi just said they just started the program in January, and we're only in May. And so they're like halfway through that fund. It seems totally appropriate that they are where they are. So all I'm saying, I just think it needs a little bit more attention. We can certainly have that discussion, but I'm not ready to make that decision tonight.
Well, I mean, we can't be right. It's 10:30 at night. Everybody's exhausted, but I think we need.
I'm ready. Let's do it.
I think we need to talk about that. It doesn't make sense to have that. It's one of the largest. It's part of the largest aspect of the budget, isn't it? For the human service budget, is the emergency rental. Isn't it something like 200,000, or was the request 200?
It depends on.
They were funded TCA was funded $266,000.
Yeah.
That's not
Yeah, it
all for
wasn't all rental
rentals.
assistance, but.
Maybe it's a comprehensive.
But we
look
keep
at
hearing
rental
that, but council decided 2 years ago that we need to have the rental assistance considered as part of agency review. It's like, I think we need to reconsider it, and we can reconsider it in a formal way, or I'll start a work group maybe to discuss it more, but it just,
What are we, can I ask you this, what are we trying to,
we're trying to solve that we can only fund 1 of every 10 requests for emergency rental assistance, and that's just not.
Is that accurate?
I'm going to refer to Octavia on that number.
Octavia, welcome.
Yeah. You gotta mark across the hot coals first.
Mayor and council. So in terms of the numbers, that is based upon TCAAs on estimation. And in terms of speaking to the details of their proposal, they have said, okay, so we can fund 12.5 requests per month and no more. And so when they looked at their budget, that's how it worked out. In terms of the need, we don't have a deep understanding of what the need is. There's been no great deep assessment of what prevention is needed for homelessness. We have the numbers for people that are currently homeless, but not for prevention. There's just not that information that's available.
Okay. Good. I mean, I'm willing to work it, in the future. Yeah. And it's important.
It sounds like to me, maybe moving forward, what we could talk about is just the overall comprehensive plan for rental assistance and the impact it's having, and who's actually the players, that work together, and that we either fund directly or maybe through TCC, and how that is funneled.
I think you could review all of that as far as who all is getting funding, numbers served, and then, like Octavia said, what is the true need there?
And how much of that cap
prevention.
money is really going to emergency system? I don't have that number in front of me, but I think it would be wise to at least have the detailed information.
Well, and by the way, I was told that, actually 10%, funding 10% of the need is actually higher than other Valley cities, so I'm aware of that. We actually do a better job, but I think we could do even better, especially given the community needs survey revealed that affordable housing and these issues are central to people's concerns in our city related to human services. And I don't feel like we're quite meeting the need, and it's not a question of being political or making a more political decision or someone lobbying. No one's lobbied this council. It's just a matter of trying to meet this growing need that we have in our city, and we're not adequately meeting the need. And we don't have a performance measure for it, right? The only performance measure we have for affordable housing is, do we give out the money that we've apportioned to the people that should receive the money? That's our only measure.
I mean, the Human Services Department, along with TCC, we're willing to work with those partners that are providing rental assistance and look at that whole system and how we're providing that service and program, and possibly how do we measure that to make sure that we are meeting that need, and what could that look like? I mean, we'd be willing to do that this year.
Thank you.
So if you don't have any budget direction for next year's budget for this, okay? The very last one, pardon me?
The end of hate.
Last issue that you said you wanted to discuss was the issue of strategies related to code compliance. We had told you that a code compliance officer position was not funded in the supplemental budget process, and you asked if we could give you more detail. We provided a lot of detail in your packet so that it isn't just the positions, but when we worked with community development, we looked at all of the strategies that they had to try to resolve the code compliance issues. And
Is one of them iPads and garbage trucks?
Yeah.
that may or may not have been one of them, but there was a list of strategies in your packet, and also in a Friday packet previously on April 27, a more comprehensive discussion of what the strategies are to deal with code compliance. But you wanted to bring this back up, and at the last budget review session, you said, I'd like to discuss this further. So here we are.
Councilman Granville.
I'll speak to this one since I brought it up. First off, I really appreciated how quickly Jeff Temulevich got all that information together, because the comment that the city manager made I thought was spot on. That is that there are a lot of things that affect numbers and might have nothing to do with the budget. It's a perfectly fine point. So I'm perfectly happy to drop this for now, with the expectation that in a year or two, whenever we do our code compliance thing, that, you know, that the numbers have moved, and that we're not going to, in another year or two, come back with another set of reasons why they didn't move. Because what I have been told now through this is our plan forward. So as long as you guys are comfortable, I mean, you don't spend money for the sake of spending money. And so if this is the path forward, I would defer to the experts. But you know, that means I'm going to hold you to it. And so far in 6 years, the holding you to it hasn't, not you, the collective you, hasn't actually moved the needle yet. But maybe this is the year.
So, Mayor, we didn't have any other issues that you raised at the time, so unless you have anything new tonight, you can adopt your tentative budget.
Okay. All right. Is there a motion to approve the budget?
Sorry, Mayor?
Yeah.
This is a public hearing item.
Yes. Sorry, wait. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to address us under the public hearing item for our budget? Can you please get my attention? Don? Don, you can come up and talk if you want. Are you going to advocate for more money for Public Works? All right. Is there anyone else in the audience wishing to address us? Seeing none, I'll close that hearing of the public hearing. Is there a motion to approve the resolution adopting the fiscal year 18-19 tentative budget as stated?
So moved.
It's been moved by Councilmember Keating. Is there a second? Second by Vice Mayor. Do I do a voice vote or no? No. Please vote. And we have to do roll call.
And that also includes setting the public hearings for June 7th as well.
And it does include setting public hearings for June 7th. And also a public hearing for final adoption of the property tax levy scheduled for June 28th. So, David?
I vote aye.
That's enthusiastic.
I'm on the phone, Mayor.
Joel's here. You voting yes?
Aye.
That motion
Yes.
passes 7-0. With that, we are adjourned and we need to go upstairs for executive session. Meeting adjourned.